Adzikov, which I think is definitely not expected.
It certainly isn't. I mean, Colomone, a very, very tough competitor. Adzikov, of course, the most veteran of the veterans. And he's got his Dagon left. And what do you make of this Dagon list?
In the last series, so it'll be the first time we see it. It's a fun deck to play, I think, and then a fun deck to watch as well. I think a lot of the way, how it synergizes is really interesting, and it's gonna be a treat to see, really.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Deathwish always popular for good reason because of fantastic cards such as Arcaspores, which are great fun. And we see
Догон на последних желаниях против Динобрувера. Что не прет Коломону.
But he mulligans it, and he finds his Nova straight away.
He's committing to Squirtle. I mean, this is the third game he's
Два раза
playing on
проиграл
this
на
deck. He hasn't changed off
Динобрувер.
it yet. If anyone was looking to see Colomon play different decks, well, you're out of luck, because he is a man that's just, bound to play Brewer until he gets that win that he needs.
Yeah, he's very methodical. I mean, I think of all players, well, of course, many of these players have very, very good attitudes, but I think Colomon is the least likely to tilt, I would imagine. He's a very methodical, very calm player, and he's just sticking with it until he gets his win.
And there's the War Dancer again, not allowing Adzikov to dry pass.
And there we go, Arcaspore coming out, going to find value if this round does elongate.
You want to get these Arcaspores out immediately, and not only, obviously they're engine units that the earlier you put them down, the more points they get, because they get a point every single turn, basically, through their damage pings. But also you kind of enable other cards, like Brewis Ritual, for example, that you need to res those Deathwish units, and also Slizzards. So, yeah, I mean, it's a card you definitely want to get out early and have it, fill your graveyard in round 2 and 3.
I'm actually really loving the sort of variety of utility in Adzikov's hands, actually. So he's sort of managed to find a little bit of everything. He's got the Barbragazi there, he's got the Dal there. However, looking at Colomone's hands, he is, of course, going to go for the infamous opener.
And it's a great opener, but...
It is a great opener,
but
that's
it's only 7 points of damage, and because of the, the 4-point ping, once that Archspore dies, it's really not the best. It's not, you're not hitting a Yavey, you're not hitting an 18-point officer either, so it's good. It's a good way to just get a 15-point gap right away, but it could be better.
It certainly could. Adzikov looking to respond, tempted to go for the Slizzard. Okay, he's going to be Slizzarding out another Arcaspore.
And he commits to going 2 cards down. This is what Brewer's all
сможет
about.
ли Коломон выиграть на Динобрувере?
Even if it wasn't ideal.
Там Аджикову повезло в прошлой партии, что он нового нашелся.
Yeah, Brewer's so powerful because it forces that question, doesn't it? So do you want to lose on even, or do you want to go 2 cards down? And really the answer is neither. But it looks like Colomon may actually play into this round a little bit longer.
400, да, хватило.
Quite the fight here in round 1.
Yeah, there's a lot of respect for these players. I think they all know that if you give your opponent a lot of control, even if they're 2 cards down, they can put you in some pretty sticky situations in round 2. Maybe
Ну и опять же, второй ход для Догона это капец.
Trying to temper out the storm and just play this round 1 out until they both feel comfortable where you can go into a round 2 or 3, and even if it's long, you still won't be at a huge disadvantage.
Не знаю, что-то Коломон зациклился на белках. Играл бы ими, когда второй ход. Взял бы, у него уже, по-моему, Бран есть для первого хода. О, антипогодный конь. Немножко не вовремя. Сейчас пас будет от Аджикова. Пас от Аджикова. Ты серьезно? Теперь будет пас от Коломона.
or what, even more than that in a very long round. So it's a tricky deck to play against for sure.
Maybe he's really just trying to like play into the swarm and then hit a huge rot fiend.
That could be
That's
it.
what I want to see. I want to see some major rot
Ну,
fiend.
до флага, естественно, Калимон подождет. Это моя подушечка.
Dagon, for example, as well, kind of maybe says he wants to go into maybe trying to find a pass soon, because that is a card you want to play somewhat early, but it's looking tricky for Azekov here.
Нет?
And that's another neophyte.
Почему он не устраивает его минус 2 карты?
Buffing the Hattori could be, you know, a sort of finisher later on as well. So
ну и все теперь.
It's actually quite an important buff to get Hattori to 4 because it's
ладно, не все.
Ida is resurrectable, which can have a real impact on matches.
Ладно, не все.
And Azekov finding a fail
Кто еще может посунуть Калимон? Я, наверное, чего-то не знаю об этом матчапе, поэтому Калимон не пасует.
As long as he can keep up the tempo, the next round, which you can do with Brewers Ritual, he could be fine. And then you can use gills into Serena.
Либо он много эльфов заспамил, да, поэтому он хочет забирать этот раунд, но... Но. Если у врага есть carry-over, забирать раунд уже и как-то... Не камильфо. Да, Калимон? Я предлагал пасовать в прошлом ходу.
Things like the rock
Ты меня не послушал.
start representing more and more value as this round goes on. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because both these players vying for control of the match's tempo here. And I would actually argue Azekov potentially is in the better position to do so, even if it would mean going -2. Yeah, Colomone doesn't want to fight.
Хоть в этот раз пасуем.
sees that Azekov had an out there and says, no, I'm going to pass, and you're going to have to go 2 cards down. So even if you have carryover, I'm still not going to let you get... You can have control of the game, but you're in a pretty bad position going into round 2.
He certainly is. So, I mean, you know, it's kind of interesting to describe 2 cards up as a pretty bad position, but it's actually kind of true in this instance, because he's going to get some very, very core pieces that he doesn't want to spend very quickly.
Although, I mean, this elf deck, it has a very good burst in round 1, has a very good long round, but when you get into that mid-range round where you don't have cards like Aileron and Bruver and Cleaver to really help you out to start, it gets trickier. You have that 4 or 5 card round 2 where you're going to be losing out on a lot of power, I think.
Certainly, and the Dagon immediately hitting the War Dancer, giving Colomone a very avoidable row, actually.
And Azekov has the Frightener. Colomone does not have the Yavin right now, and he used Bruver already in round 1, so...
Типа минус 2 карты, да?
Azekov could maybe claw back.
Отправил Калимон.
It's going to be tough, though.
Yeah, I mean, I like
Один Аджикова. Поможет ли это Калимон? В прошлый раз он в Скеллиге отправил, да, там минус 2 карты. И это все равно не помогло Калимону.
The rot fiend later on if he wants to stack that row, so a few options there for Azekov.
Помните мою теорию про подкручивание левому игроку? В хорошую сторону, а правому в нехорошую. То есть Аджику уже повезло в прошлый раз, что он новую нашел ганконя.
Yeah, it just says you're going to go and really push here and really force Colomone to get into a really sticky situation.
Yeah, this is a real committal from Azekov here, getting that Arcspore out, another engine unit, of course, and the down, which allows those Griffins to find huge amounts of value every time they're played, turns it into a 17-point drop.
Отдает без зазрения совести. Кухарку. Страджиков, лишь бы отыграть карты, да?
And as soon as he shows that, Colomone all of a sudden goes, okay, he's serious about this round.
Yeah, and it's a big threat. I mean, you see that come down, you say, this guy's going to take this. He's not going to pass next turn. I mean, there's no way you play that card and then pass next turn. And it says, you know, Colomone has to get his plan going immediately. Like, you cannot wait here. You have to go, you know, full tempo ahead, or else you're going to get in a lot of trouble.
Here comes the Frightener. He's going to want to find that fog value as quick as possible, so wouldn't expect to see it too delayed. There is the Frightener coming down. Dragging, looks like he's thinking about half of Hunter.
And that muzzle is absolutely insane because it guarantees the Sirenova from the gills. So,
my goodness.
Huge draw from Azekov. He's very happy with that one for sure. He still had a lot of cards left in his deck, so it wasn't a guaranteed draw by any means. And I think he's quite happy with how this is going. Even though he was 2 cards down, I think he's pulling it back little by little. And it may just be enough to win this game.
Пожопничает ли он с налюдом?
Ignoring just the fact that, you know, he immediately has a 16-point value muzzle on the table, like you say, guaranteeing Nova from Gills is enormous. And it means that he can absolutely strike into this round and potentially even look at closing it out.
Боится проиграть. Не то чтобы это важный оракул для Калимона, но неприятно. Минус эльф еще. Какое-то серебро, наверное, сыграет, скорее всего. Гнездо там будет. Все равно сначала на Грифона бы сыграть, мне кажется. Или он убережет на следующий раунд.
So yeah, that's one of the wonderful things about Gil's offering that flexibility of, hey, do you want your Nova right now, or would you like me to guarantee it for you next round? So really, really great utility coming out of Gil's there.
Everything all right?
Right-head officer comes in.
This is where the elf deck starts to shine once again. Has a few rounds where it's a bit slow, but now with this many elf bodies and the vanguards coming out, it has no problem pumping out tempo.
It draws another vanguard as well.
Где Грифон решает сыграть потом? Гельса. Мистер Аджиков, играйте Грифона.
Obviously, if you're playing with 5 cards, it's less impactful if you have 1 card less. If you're playing with 2 cards, that's already, you know, half the cards that your opponent has, and you're going to notice that dent a lot more.
Yeah, of course, the proportionality of the card advantage is really, really important. It's something that Atsikov is certainly used to, so he is going to try and find that sweet spot. Looks like She-Troll or Vergen could be coming down.
Also kills 2 elves, but plays Rot Fiend, so it's you know, it looks like it's 8 value there.
Yeah, I like this Rot Fiend.
Kills 2 elves, 2 less bodies to deal with.
Там что, 2 эльфов убивает?
Buffs the Farseer.
And the Farseer, cheeky Farseer buff. Who would have thought? But they're the MVP, so even more than 18 points on that muzzle. We thought it was 18, it might be a 24-point muzzle, who knows?
Yeah, that Farseer really the MVP of the Deathwish deck, of course. It looks like Atsikov does have very high power cards remaining in hand. I mean, that Cyclops and the Griffin both represent huge chunks of value.
Только чем финишить господину Аджикову? Понял, ласт золота.
Colomon, very serious, very focused. Obviously, he's against the ropes.
Леший.
Down 2 games in this series against Atsikov. Atsikov very confident, even if this game just doesn't end well for him, he has the next game to recuperate. So,
but here comes the Elven tempo. That Vanguard goes back in. Yavin comes out.
Yavin, I mean, it allows.
Плохой Yavin.
Here comes the big point plays.
The Yavin could give Atsikov an ultimatum and say, I play the Yavin now. If you keep on playing,
можно Yavin заставить посануть.
But you don't want to card that card in round 3 either, so it's a bit tricky.
Аджикова, хотя вряд ли. То есть Аджикову Гельса надо играть в этом раунде.
Yeah, I'm sure Colomon would have rather seen a more proactive tempo play come out, but he does get the Yavin. And Atsikov, of course, looking to close this game out, as this is super important for these players. Colomon fighting for survival. Atsikov moving on to tomorrow's semi-final. Should he win, huge things at stakes here for both players.
If Colomon was very much ahead and Atsikov was just bleeding, he could play the Yavin and say, you know, the party's over. But because he is behind, he can't really play that Yavin in an efficient manner in round 2. So it's not the best card to draw into. It just doesn't solve too many problems or help you out too much.
And you got to look at his hand, because now that Ida Romain is gone, he has 2 hugely core game pieces and a Yavin. So it is big decision time for Colomon. What does he spend? It's got to be the Triss, right?
Yeah, it has to be, and we still see, you know, a pretty big point gap. Fog's gonna tick. I mean, it's a lot of points here, but Triss is, I think, definitely gonna.
Вот он за Гельс такой, что Аджиков удержит.
Arcsport will tick as well, so a few points, you know, in the process for Atsikov once the turn flips. But yeah, with a Vanguard, I think it's definitely gonna be enough.
It's certainly gonna be enough, but is it gonna be enough of a gap to convince Atsikov to not drop the Nova? It is not. He's gonna go for it.
He can go for the.
Nova.
He can go for the Shadow. Meryl Lawn, I believe.
Oh.
He's thinking about it. He's thinking about the Nova, because this is such a tempting point.
Там...
It basically says, look, depending on what you've got, I might just.
Ну явно надо играть.
With the Fog and the Arcsport ticking.
Yeah, I mean the Arcaspore, what is 2 value? Fog is 4. But then again, actually, well, he wouldn't even have to play the Yavin, of course. But
Големчика.
Ooh, it's so close. He's thinking about it. Really interesting.
Ну по-любому там есть шпик. Ну, со шпика будет ровное количество статов. Хотя Нова могла, может, дать ему победу. Рискует. Нова может дать ему победу. Если со шпика он не найдет больше 13 статов, то ему гейм-овер.
It's a lot more than troublesome for Colomon right now. He is not having a great time. Atsikov pushing for the 2-0 to take the series 3-0, which would be a huge upset. Of course, Atsikov, this matchup is super, it's too close to call, but nobody would have called us a 3-0, right?
And the Yavin adds an extra turn as well, so the Fog and the Archsport keep on ticking, and now Colomon is playing against himself, basically.
He knows, he's just showing his hand at this point.
This is a big vanguard,
no, it's not going to be enough.
The fog and the arc sport keep on ticking.
Easy.
Adzikov takes it 2-0 to 3-0 the series and secure his place in tomorrow's
Рисково Adzikov сыграл.
semi-final against Freddie Babes.
Грустно, Калюня на глине 3 раза проиграл. Я бы чканул на месте Аджикова. Ну, то есть... Подкручено все. То есть я просто видел карты, да, и одобрил ход Аджикова, потому что могло не хватить.
That had everything, and it was a sweep, which of course is just naturally exciting, right?
And extremely risky series.
Интересно, он предполагал, что у Калюни может быть там шпика.
For that 2-0, it just says a lot about Adzikov, and I think also the fact that he was 2-0 up already in the series really gave him the confidence to go for that play. If he was maybe 2-0 down, he would have said, let's play a bit safer here and trying to, keep this going. But being 2-0 up gives you a lot of, burst of confidence, and in the end, it paid off. He was able to take that 3-0 and just a massive sweep for him. A lot of confidence for a guy that used to, get eliminated in quarterfinals all the time. Now he's turned that around and he's back, into the semifinals and maybe
certainly has
the finals of this tournament.
A couple of Gwent Opens ago, very, very strong performance from him, of course. And now we see a dominating sweep at Challenger. Fantastic. And we're just getting the interview ready with him. And it looks like we're just about ready to throw over to Jagaris, who's going to be talking to Adzikov after his 3-0 sweep.
Well, congratulations, Adzikov. That was a disgustingly dominant performance. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I didn't expect. So I feel great, but I'm here to win, so it's just first step.
And some people say that you're cursed for the first round, and this clearly showed that that wasn't the case. What made you choose not to bring Hensel, despite the fact everyone else did?
First of all, I don't feel comfortable with Hensel. On ladder, I was struggling a lot with him, so I just decided to not bring him. If you have Hensel in your lineup, you are forced to play Hensel or red, and I don't like it, so I decided to pass him.
And were you surprised in that first game when Nova didn't show up?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I was like, okay, it's over, but then Ida came, and yeah, that was... I was really happy about it.
Я рад, что рисканул и сыграл цирку. Пойду водичку обновлю, ребят. Оставляю вас наедине с Аджиком.
So you can scare him with myself because he's scared of anything. So yeah, it's like playing against Freddy is always fun. So I'm waiting for the matchup for sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be a really good one. But taking down Colomon, kind of surprising. Like some people expected him to be very dominant, but you kind of came out on top. You said that you weren't scared of his lists, but you were scared of him. And I guess this just goes to show how well things turned out. Do you have anything that he played that you didn't expect?
He played the standard list, so yeah, every card he played, I expect, so there's nothing more to say.
That's fair to say. I think Adzikov you don't seem to be able to be surprised, but congratulations on your win and making it to the semi-finals tomorrow. So stay tuned for more games. Over to you, Jesse.
All right, that was a domination, but I think now we should check in with our Bard's Tale.
The march was long and the days flew by. They could not resist, so couldn't I. The journey had led them to caverns not known. No one would dare to enter alone. Who shall be the one to gather the gem? The fate with her presence had smiled at them. So they decided that fate it will be. Rock, paper and scissors on the count of 3. Rock, paper and scissors on the count of 3.
And that was a crazy set we had just now. Of course, Adzikov with the Death Wish deck doing incredibly well. Like I said, a deck that has really fallen off in popularity, but he may just be bringing it back after that fantastic finish there.
Yeah, a decisive 3-0 over Colomoan. I don't think anyone expected a 3-0. No. You know, we saw on the Twitter poll that that was likely to be a very close matchup. And as it wasn't really a close matchup at all. It was a very clean sweep netting Adzikov qualification into the semifinals and also the full percentage of the prize money.
Yeah, and of course Colomoan did get a little bit unlucky, but Adzikov displayed a few essential moves in those 3 games, each beating Colomoan in a different way. For example, against, of course, in the last game, against the Brewer, he played Brewer all the times, but with the Death Wish deck, specifically employing the strategy of preserving the fog in round 2, preserving it for round 2 in round 1, which is a move that not many people would take, actually paid off in huge dividends there.
For sure, and basically he made that call in that second round to go for the 2-0 rather than, you know, holding the Nova and carrying it through to the next round. And that, I think, was a big decision based on, you know, Colomoan's hand. Like, Adzikov didn't know that Colomoan necessarily had the Yavin in hand, although he may have guessed because Yavin is such an integral part of the Bruverhoog strategy. So I think he maybe was able to sniff out that Yavin and then make the choice to force Colomoan to try and catch up, and then ultimately he failed because of the attrition from the fog and from the Arcaspores.
Yeah, and one important thing you typically want to do against that Skoyatel deck that Adzikov actually employed in round 1 or game 1 specifically with his Oat deck with the Shield Smiths, but also in game 3 with Death Wish, at least at first in round 2, is basically forcing them into kind of like a middling length round 3. We talk about the long round and the short round. Skoyatel, or specifically that Brewer deck's biggest weakness, is the medium range round, because they can't win with the Nova or any of their combos, but they can't win with their big Vanguards either.
For sure, but speaking of round length, the mirror match, we did not see a medium length round. That went to a final very, very long round and ultimately ended up being a close game. We saw Colomoan opt for the dry pass on red coin in the mirror, and then ultimately not playing the Yavin or not using the Brewer in the second round, and that came back to bite him because he ended up drawing all of his silvers. Is that something that you think was maybe a misplay, or could he have played that earlier?
There was a bit of an opportunity to play that in round 2, but at the same time, he did just get a little bit lucky, unlucky in that round 3 scenario there.
Yeah, he was on the red coin, and typically people think that the red coin has the advantage, but Adzikov managed to prevail on blue coin, and I think that just came down to the fact that when you're playing a mulligan list, when you're throwing away cards, you don't know what you're going to get back, and there's always that sort of risk with a strategy that you'll end up drawing the cards that you want to be targeting with Brewer, and I think it was, you know, a very enticing game. Like, you didn't really know who was going to win, and that's the exciting thing about Gwent.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Adzikov, I think, played really cleanly. He was a very solid player and managed to get the 3-0.
Yeah, I mean,
Пиджак снял свим.
Вот
самое интересное, что произошло.
One of the strongest decks in the format, Death Wish being a huge underdog, when
Свим без пиджака,
had
господи.
the red coin
Как он мог?
considered one of its hugest advantages in a 2-0 is absolutely game-shattering.
Еще Калюня на Брувере слил 3-0.
Like, Brewer is seen as like such a great deck. Like, Brewer is a deck that makes people angry.
Калюня.
And it's kind of, it was almost
Сейчас
satisfying
Ханачан и
to
Супер
get
Джей.
destroyed a little bit by Adzikov, and I think it's going to be really
Там
exciting
мне
to
без
see
разницы, кто из них
the
победит.
semi-finals tomorrow with that Freddy Babes kind of
Будем болеть
crazy
за
decks
Супер
versus
Джея.
Adzikov, who played, like I said, very, very cleanly this time around. So,
Какие у него колоды
you
еще.
can see the brackets here on the screen. Freddy Babes versus Adzikov is coming up in the future. Hannah-chan versus Super JJ still for today. Telbot versus I Apologize as well.
Если Фреддик
But
победит
before we get
Аджикова.
into any more games, we will be going to a quick video for you guys. So stay tuned.
Фреддик это не Калюня.
Another few rounds are going to be. Will this be quick? We shall see. The bets may be raised, but watch out who you choose. It's easy as pie to be misconfused.
Okay, so we are ready to get into
Ну, тут
our
наличку
next
разводят, да?
matchup here. I believe this is Tailbot versus
Женька,
Is
здравствуй.
that right?
No, that's the third one, Swim. First, we have Hannah-chan versus Super JJ. I think this is a matchup that a lot of people are excited for.
О,
Hannah-chan coming
монстры
fresh
от
off his
JJ.
win at the previous Gwent Open. Super
И
JJ
Нильфа от
renowned for being
JJ.
a
Никаких
skilled
белок,
player
сказал JJ.
within the Gwent community, playing
Вот
for
это нормально.
complexity. And this
Это
is a
молодец.
matchup that I think a lot of people are looking forward to.
Два Коля отправились домой.
There on Super JJ's side.
Ну, один из них, каким счетом, угадай какой. Угадай, какой Коля поехал домой, каким счетом. Женька, давай, проверим тебя на...
So, how are you feeling with this matchup based on the kind of the players' histories?
на интуицию. Наш Коля. Я так и думал, что ты скажешь. Наш Коля. Наш Коля. Наш Коля не какой-то там Коля. Наш Коля смог. А немецкий Коля не смог. Блин, что-то слишком люди не любят Ханычана. Опять же, люди, они такие. Опять же, прогноз людей сбылись. По греха таить. Я придумал все подставки для головы новые. Водичку бы не дали, господи, сколько раз разливал водичку.
Are more typical but played at a very high level, similarly to the way that Adzakov plays games. So Twitter poll, very much in favor of Super JJ. Who do you think is going to win?
Все равно
рука. But if I personally had to pick, very slightly favor JJ, but really close.
Yeah, I think that JJ is the kind of player that will surprise you, but Hannah-chan is the more consistent one. So it kind of comes down to what JJ has brought.
Наверное, не слышали. Микрофон-то был закрыт, ну-ка. Раз. Не, нормально. Да? Да, нормально. Ну, только все равно глухо. О! Его отправили туда же, куда и первую пару.
And yeah, it has like a special flavor to itself, so it's pretty exciting. It's more like, I mean, the games are interesting and such, of course, but what makes the challenger kind of special is like, of course, the location, the kind of work you put in here to get us here. I mean, the prize pool and such, it's not too important. It's more like the challenger itself as a step to maybe Grandmasters. It's hard to combine these things and then also play the games, so I'm just being myself, and of course you gotta have kind of a straight mindset, like what are your goals and such, not think too much about the money and think more about the game and what you could do better, for example. I mean, the only guy I would not like to face is Freddy because he's my
Не нравится ему этот шлем.
And the rest, you know, I really don't care. It's like, if it's a good opponent, hey, let's have a good game. And I mean, I think all of the people here have proven themselves that they are pretty good Gwent players. So let's get it on. Guys, you know my decks. You better don't play decks I'm countering. Good luck.
Вот еще у Калимона, да, со своим. Значит, Супер JJ проиграет.
I think that a lot of tournament experience can at least let you become more stable and calm, and therefore it might be helpful for your overall performance. In this tournament, the player I'm most familiar with would be Ajikov. I also often encounter him on the pro ladder. If I manage to get to the finals, I would like to see Ajikov as my final opponent.
Зачем его заставили там лезть? Мне сейчас смеяться больно последние 2 дня. Как в детстве. Я смеюсь и ну, типа живот больно. Что это может значить, Жень? Ты же врач. То есть даже если не сильно, все равно больно. То, что больно, ну типа как-то отдача идет от смеха. Вот. У него тоже плотва, любимая карта. Что за дела?
In my opinion, playing in a salt mine shouldn't have any influence on players, because when you're focused on the game, you don't.
Я когда смеюсь, типа, не знаю, присуха болит, которой у меня нет.
Makes me feel really excited.
Hello, welcome back. Let's take a minute to check
Типа как в
out...
детстве, я вот маленький был, у меня тоже была такая тема. Я смеялся и типа, ну, типа, около живота, короче, болело или не знаю, как это называть. Грубо вот в области живота.
Gvint Challenger at Tidnendo, just when I think that the @Gvint Masters production value can't get any better, you guys prove me wrong. Mguka says, tuning in to #Gvint Challenger 3 live from Poland. Always the most exciting Gvint moments. Always good to see new and old faces. Good luck all. At PB Jinzi, that Yennefer Cow Harpy play was probably the coolest thing I've seen all week, by the way.
Не знаю, я не врач.
From @Gvint Masters WW, we all at Gvint Masters WW and the Lodge of Sorceresses are stoked watching today's matches. Good luck to all the competitors. May the salt not seep into your soul and the cards be in your favor. From @Farod's Bro, CD Projekt Red turned the
ну это типа не распространенная тема.
Into the Mahakam Fort for Gvint Challenger. The lineup is stacked, but I'm rooting for Super JJ.
Я помню, маленький был, у меня такая тема была.
Helped me become a better player. Hype. At
Смеюсь.
Tailbot better deliver a freshly baked new speech. We'll look at more later. But right now, let's head over to our favorite Spanish-Canadian couple, Spanadian casters, Beard and Mega Mogwai. Take it away,
guys. По утрам, по вечерам, может,
I think I've ever had in tournament history. Thanks, Jesse, so much. We're getting ready for the back half here of Gvint Masters number 3, Spanadian. What do you think about Spanadian?
I love it. I don't know why. It's perfect.
It's perfect. This is going to be a great matchup coming up, though. We got Super JJ taking on Hannah-chan, and you talked about how this is one of the greatest matches, or a rematch of one of the greatest matches in Gvint history.
Последние 2 дня ничего не делал.
Number 1 when it was coming from you at Gamescom from Cologne, Germany. That matchup was so close. And those players, you know, this is like in the infancy of Gvint Challenger. And, you know, a lot of stuff has changed. Obviously, both players now each have a Gvint Open Championship under their belt. So we're going to see who's able to take this win here, as it's a battle of open champions.
It's an outstanding matchup. I was really looking forward to this one. Even before the drawings came, I actually said this is one of the pairings that I really wanted for the quarterfinals. Super JJ and Hannah-chan went at it at Gvint Open 1, and it was one of the most brilliant Gvint sets that I've ever seen. With even a meme came out of it as well, with Super JJ just freaking out when a certain top deck went his way. Definitely two of the top best players out there. Gvint Open,
я не думаю, что это не придавать им значение какое-то.
So it's a battle of the most recent champions of the Gvint Open players, and it's gonna be a good one. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I think they're getting ready here to walk into the arena here. So let's cut over to. We are going to just take a look at something real quick just before we get started with the Gvint match here. We're taking a look at the matchups. So as you can see here, Shamel and Freddy Babes ends with Freddy Babes. The victor, 400 grand, 4 grand going his way. Shmel not going home empty-handed. Fortunately, Coleman does go home empty-handed as Adzakov does the clean sweep. And we're going to see how the prize money is settled here in the back part of today. Super JJ versus Hannah-chan, and I apologize.
Надо, чтобы Hannah-chan там хотя бы там 3-2 сыграл.
Adzakov with a very surprising victory right there.
Я не хочется смотреть долгие каточки. Метеоризм. Какой метеоризм?
One of the most feared Gwen competitors out there and advancing to the semifinals. I'm definitely very much looking forward to that semifinal tomorrow between Freddy Babes and Adzakov. They haven't faced each other in a while, and it was a great series back in Gwen Slam. So, but we have Hannah-chan and Super JJ ahead of us, and like I said, Super JJ has a very big following behind him. He does upload videos helping out newer players, and he's one of the most, proficient competitors out there with a very
грустно что-то рассказывает.
But before we go into that, let's take a look at the players who are about to go in. It's on.
It's on right now. Into the arena they walk.
Еще газовое время. Ой-ой-ой, Павка одел свою форму. Богатство. Не понравились наушники. Чану. Давай, Супер Диджей, покажи класс. Покажи хорошие колоды. Нестандартные все лидеры такие у диджея. Хотя как рассматривать? Ну, кроме Хенсента, наверное. Вот друг другу Хенсов побанили. И солнышко? Нет, где пупок? Присуха болит, перекачал.
Let's not talk too much about anything yet, but it is great to see these two players get to rematch again. I like seeing, usually one of the best parts of a competition is when you have somebody who has such a great record take on somebody else with such a great record. You see it a lot in like UFC and stuff like that. You have like somebody's going to lose that fight, right? So you have the Gwen Open 3 champion and the Gwen Open 4 champion. It's really good. Both of these players
если завтра мне тоже будет тяжело смеяться.
Many of the players have, but this particular one is great because it's the past two champions. You have Hannah-chan, who is known for bringing, he's a step ahead, right? Bringing great swords in Gwen Open 4 when no one else was. You have Super JJ, who's known for hyper-targeting stuff.
Yes.
And sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just about him not catching the matchup he wanted. Like Gwen Open number 1, he was expecting Mill. He was going to destroy Mill. He didn't see it. But Gwen Open number 3, he was expecting Consume. He saw it.
Кто будет там смотрит? Какие колоды подготовил JJ?
Everything else, because not only is his targeting great for shutting down certain archetypes, he builds really good decks around that strategy as well. So even if he doesn't catch that matchup, the decks are strong regardless.
Yeah, Super G's aggressive targeting style has definitely paid off for him recently, and I am a big fan of it because I see it as an approach of wanting to win instead of wanting to not lose, which are two different things, believe it or not. You can be way too cautious, but I like how JJ really tries to take advantage of the Conquest format and tries to isolate one deck, because at the end of the day, if you do not let an individual win with one particular deck, that's all you need to come out on top. So we're going to see if Hannah-chan is going to be the victim of this or not, and we're going to see
И оба почему-то он их перевернул деками вниз.
Last time these two faced, as good as a series as it was, one came out on top, and that was Super JJ, who advanced to the semifinals of that Gwen Open. So Hannah-chan trying to seek a little bit of redemption here, and I'm just so excited for this. Like I said, the two most recent champions of Gwen Open going at it, I just can't wait.
It's actually so great that we see Super JJ and Hannah-chan together. Like, we've seen Hannah-chan in every Gwent Open, and we've seen Super JJ a lot as well, but we haven't seen either of them at a challenger. So this is particularly fantastic, I think, that they've made it here, and now they stand in each other's ways. I love that narrative, and yeah, we're going to get things started in just a moment here.
Серьезно, я, может, что-то неправильно понял, но JJ, по-моему, 2 листа с колодами, и он оба их деками вниз перевернул.
I really am intrigued, because obviously we had a look at the deck list prior, but we're not going to spoil up until the matches happen, but say JJ does, he probably does want to have a...
Yeah.
There we go.
Actually,
all right.
We have the deck list in front of us right now. Excellent. Now, just like every other matchup we've seen so far, this one's not going to disappoint either. Again, we're going to see some surprises, I think, and we're going to see JJ's strategy play out. And I think that, well, we'll wait till we get into it. We know we have a good idea of what he was expecting to be the threat. Maybe not even the threat, but where he can slam the door. It's not so much about the threat, I think, but it's about shutting the door.
Да, добро, типа, Ханычан можете тащить.
But that third one eluded. I think that's
Ну, команды. Вот сейчас это разрешила Ханычану играть. Они, наверное, начали. Или не начали.
Oh, here we go.
Начали.
We're in. It's going to be Nilfgaard.
Nilfgaard Civil War.
Oh, but look at this. JJ's bringing Nilfgaard Spy. How do we feel about that? Nilfgaard Spy is making a reappearance.
Oh, yeah, boy.
Even
this
with
makes me happy.
the Nilfgaard mirror from Mogwai, it's just...
I love seeing spies.
I'll just turn my mic off.
Ух ты ж.
Oh, boy. This feels great. I know a lot of people, you know, still remember the spy.
Видите камбэк, блин. Серьезно. Завтра в ладере будут одни шпики. Правда, с алхимией это плохой матчап. Да бы сейчас любой, не знаю. Я, конечно, пробовал шпиками играть. Достаточно неплохо было.
Hanachan immediately knows what he's facing as he drops a slave driver onto the siege
Это
road.
Регис?
Sees the two engines
Я думаю, что это Лето Регис.
which gives him information regarding Super JJ's deck and already lets him know that he's facing indeed Nilfgaard spies. I'm very intrigued. I haven't seen a John Calvate Emir spy matchup in a while.
Yeah, like Emir spy matchups, it's almost like a relic of the past. Like I'm trying to think of like how it would perform against anything at any given time. A lot of people kind of just sort of said, you know, alchemy's the new thing now. Spies are out. Enforcers aren't as good as they used to be. Gerald Igni showing up as well.
Rainfarn pulling Roach out of the deck and getting Cantrella for only a -4 tempo play, putting Hanachan 11 points ahead, but also basically forcing him out of the round or threatening him with a -2 drop. Now, if Hanachan were to play a card here, he can become, but he does fish for Cantrella with John Calvate, and he gets it. This is massive for him.
Just turns it right around.
By the way, placing John Calvate right next to Cantrella, so that when he plays the Vicar of Novice, potentially on this range row as well, the odds of Macam AO not hitting Cantrella are higher, which is what he wants, because even though Super JJ goes for Meno immediately, Super JJ wants to force him out of the round early on, because Alchemy Nilfgaard loses a lot of power if you force them out of a round early, as they do have to thin the Macam AOs out of the deck. They have to thin all the Alchemy components so that they have a precise round 3. As we see a Chris telekinesis with, you know, matching tempo with tempo, getting Roach out of his deck, and a nice Macam AO swing, which also thins the deck. One of them. It's very important. You want to get the beers out.
Что значит обычные шпики? Шпики в Неме это уже давно.
Early. Like this spy list from Super JJ, it's very traditional in the sense that the things that you would expect to be in there are there. Nausicaa Brigade, Enforcers and Brigade, Infiltrator as well to help along Meno. So, I mean, as far as like a long round against Alchemy, is it possible that Meno could have gotten better value? It's really
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's just about that early tempo.
It's about pressuring.
Very liberal.
It's about really like Rainfarn into Roach. Like there's a reason why he's running Roach. He went for that play without even thinking about it. That hit, he knows his matchup, and he knows he needs to force Alchemy out early so that he can threaten with basically forcing Hanachan to push in a long round and have his snowball engines go through and just get all the value as he goes, the classic Emir onto Kalak and gets an emissary onto
Просто обычные шпики, типа обычные не подходят, я думаю.
So this is interesting because the slave drivers aren't like really great for Hanachan in this matchup either. Like they're getting engines they can't really use because they're not focusing on spies.
Yep.
But there's the Vicovaro medics that they could get, but that's not even that fantastic either. It's fishing up the stuff that they can't use in the first place from the slave drivers. So and infiltrators, Nausicaa Brigade, it's it's going to be okay. But it's not kind of like the powerhouse plays that Nilfgaard Alchemy does in the first place, where they're able to deny opponent's strategy and also use their opponent's strategy against them in a control way. This is a little bit different here, especially as, I mean, he can shut down the engines. That's for sure.
I mean, it's a case of a deck that he's facing a deck that relies on a lot around its own synergy, which, you know, is not exactly the same when it comes to the faction of Skoyeto, as Skoyeto has a lot of bronze cards that achieve value on their own, regardless of others, you know, whether others are present or not. So that makes the Slave Driver extremely powerful in the Skoyeto matchup, but against the Spy Nilfgaard, as you said, it is not really that efficient. And this this emissary onto the melee row is no coincidence either. He's trying to potentially set up a Geralt Igni on that melee row, which would find home right now, and
может быть не древний шпик,
то есть мы
не знаем пока все карты.
Pressure Hannah-Chen out of the round here, as we may see a Cynthia here.
Rolling the runestone here, Cynthia does grab a Sierra, so that it would be a pretty healthy 16-point silver, unless he thinks he's going to get more value out of Kale.
Я бы, наверное, как Гыра
Does he
играл.
expect the Igni? No, well, if he goes for Cynthia, will he place it on the melee road? He's going to go for Kalak instead. Trying to think through his deck, but he's going to search for another Viper Witcher or a Vikovaro Medic.
Well, this and now he's actually able to use the engines as well.
I like this.
Protects Calvin. Also, yeah, it's pretty good. Now the Igni is active, so if JJ wants to just use it to get value, he can. It's a little low for Igni. You can usually line up something a bit better than this.
That also plays around Igni, like going for the Kalak on the emissary, basically disaligned both Imperial Brigade and Trist Telekinesis, so they no longer share the same amount of strength. So Geralt Igni goes from
Блин, я что-то резко запах
17, and
какого-то фрукта почую.
У меня нет. Like he may want to hold on to it for a while and not rush it.
You know what 17 is better than? 5. So sometimes Igni, you know, you got that, you had a little bit of risk there. Igni, I feel like for tournaments, you have a lot of influence over your opponent's board with like Joachim and Cantarella, so I think that JJ is likely going to get a fair amount of value from Igni if he's able to play it well. But when you bring it to tournaments and your opponents know for sure you're running it, it's tough. I think it's a little bit tougher than maybe some of the other gold choices, but definitely JJ definitely has a plan here.
Грустно.
As Hannah-Chen stays ahead here
by 13 points, dropping down the second Viper School Witcher, as Super JJ is hovering over, you know, his options, really holding on to that Imperial Enforcer, because in this matchup it is basically Viper School Witcher bait, and if he does drop the Imperial Enforcers, it will lead to a certain tempo loss, which he's trying to get that momentum. He's still, you know, he's still pressuring, and he goes for Joaquin to put Hannah-Chen in a rough spot right there. Tagging the Roach in the back with the spine status. Even though, for those of you who may have not seen the Spy Nilfgaard deck in a while, Imperial Forces got reworked. Well, they got nerfed, basically. They deal damage as they're deployed, but then they don't deal damage for every spot unit on the opposing board as they used to, so you have to play them earlier on to get that advantage. As Vesemir goes down onto an offensive Mandrake on the Imperial Brigade for a 22-point swing in favor of Hannah-Chen, who has been able to basically deny the early onslaught of JJ and has stopped him down and struck him and has said him, you know, hey, I'm not backing out of this first round. I'm gonna keep on playing it. I'm gonna keep on matching your score, and I'm creating strength gap now.
It's interesting. I wonder if JJ is going to be able to rob Hannah-Chen of like a Viper Witcher, and that may be so important as far as like using the ointment to take it out of the graveyard. He actually starts plucking them out of Hannah-Chen's graveyard. I don't think Hannah-Chan's going to let him really do that, especially because he knows the Vikovaros exist because of Slave Driver giving him that information. But I think that it's possible that he just makes the control aspect of Hannah-Chan's deck a little bit worse in later rounds, and that may be really important because he has so many engines to rely on.
But the problem is, if you Vicovaro Medic a Viper School Witcher, it just becomes a 6-point play. And I don't think JJ, especially against such a powerful and aggressive deck like Alchemy Nilfgaard, I just don't think he can. And there's the Igni setup.
Setup right here is so good.
Oh boy, well, does Hannah-Chen see this? He has to see this. But the thing is, can he stop this? He can with a Vicovaro Novice on the back of the hill, but he has to get lucky.
Yeah, otherwise he passes on even, which is not well. He would force JJ to play a card. He's also counting up the spies to know how much a brigade is if it touches down.
Oh, he's going for it. He's going for it. Will he get it? He does get it.
What a clutch. Oh. Tastiest beer EU. Wow.
Oh, man. Can I give you some ease in the chat, please? Wow. Calculated.
That was not bad.
Да, погонщик тоже стрёмный. Если есть алхимия, конечно. Конечно, маловероятно. Ведьмаки пустые. С погонщика будет либо ведьмак, либо... Алхимик. Ну, это медик Виковара, ученик Виковара. Это... Вы не помните же, раньше медики брались в колоду шпиков только для того, чтобы крутить колоду. Теперь пустые будет. Не переворуют столько. Не всегда. Переворуют столько. Тут и так вон вижу двух погонщиков, двух ведьмаков. И тем более притиркой можно резнуть. Кого? Притиркой можно резнуть на крайняка того же пика. Боечку.
Now, if this beer hits, oh man, if this beer hits Triss, he's not going to play the beer. He might. I mean, you said he. No. Okay. Just looking for an excuse to have that cathartic moment in a tournament where it hits Triss. JJ just runs away with this round, but the round will continue. Extra value Imperial Enforcers here. He has given him good Nausicaa Brigade value if you opted to go for that because he has a 6 strength emissary now, but we do see another Imperial Enforcer. But I think at this stage you go for the Infiltrator to proc the 2 Enforcers. It gives you the stronger swing. Yeah. Though setting up the setting up the 3rd Enforcer, since he's gonna have another Guevara medic, it's actually better. Yeah, he is gonna set up the 3rd Enforcer here. God, it looks like a mirror match. One left still, so he could potentially try to disrupt this Igni again, but it's a long shot. Like, I don't know if it's worth it. It's a long shot, and it's a fairly, it seems like a comfortable, well, it seems like a comfortable pass, but JJ is basically saying, I got Igni. It's not that comfortable.
Ну что, все равно столько не замешает. Крайняк шпик будет. Господин Хануч.
And it's not even going to happen regardless because he does deny it. And he gets that buff on the Emperor Brigade.
Сейчас притирка была на шпика классно. Ну там больше нет шпика в сбросе. Попас. Хотя надо Игни играть.
And the Vico can't take it because I don't think that there's any emissaries left. No, there's nothing. There's nothing in the graveyard. This puts JJ in a bad position again. And Igni can be very, very awkward. Yeah, JJ's in trouble. JJ's in trouble here. Well, he can pass with a card. I mean, he does have that red coin advantage. Yeah, I keep forgetting that the ointment onto the emissary will prevent the Igni, and Hannah-chan definitely saw that and went for it. And now JJ is looking at a rough hand here. I mean, he does have Stefan Skellen. But that Geralt Igni is gonna be an issue now. And there's some classic stuff in JJ's list. You know, Iris is in here, hiding somewhere in these last 4 cards of the deck, as well. I think we may see a dry pass here from Hannah-chan. It's a little bit risky not to do otherwise. I wonder what Stefan Skellen would be looking for. It's possible it's just I mean, it's just a good card generally, but especially for spies. I mean,
он шпика замешает.
I think you definitely go Stefan.
Надо играть этого.
Oh, the Iris is in his hand now. My apologies, my friends.
Елена.
He has Stefan Skellen. He also has the Nausicaa Brigade left in his deck as well, and he can go for Stefan Skellen. And sure, he can draw that card and then mulligan away the Igni and utilize as a year to bring back Roach. I think that is his best option to win here. He will have. He has the Vicar of Aromatic, which can enable him to get enough bodies on the board to proc Iris. So JJ still has power.
Yeah, по картам в колоде, там 3 карты осталось.
He has quite a bit of strength here. Like, he has to go for Stefan Skellen, I think.
Грустненько уже,
he'll ensure he can draw. Well, unless he thinks Igni is dead. It's possible that he thinks that Igni is not going to get any value. But he could mulligan it later, right? He could. Because you draw 100% what you want with Stefan Skellen, so you know what you will draw, so you can always mulligan away the Geralt Igni. But I guess he's looking at a different. cat's out of the bag for the Igni now, if it wasn't already. If it wasn't already.
He's already played Joaquin here, so what is he expecting to get?
Ka here on the draw here for Hannah-chan, not bad.
Как бронзу какую-то под этого.
Both decks so thin right now. We're seeing everything at this point. He's gonna keep the hand.
Он решил не томить надежд, что Игни сыграет против канального игрока. Вопрос, убьет ли он эту?
Because, okay, so looking at JJ's deck,
yeah, what would he be worried about seeing?
He's already played all his silvers, though.
There's a Nausicaa Brigade, I believe. He has a 1-of.
He has one Nausicaa Brigade, and I believe he... What is his last unit, though? Because he's played the triple Enforcers. He's played all his Infiltrators as well. Maybe one Vicovaro Medic? Or is it... Is it an Emissary?
I think it actually is one Vicovaro Medic.
One Vicovaro Medic.
Because he had 2 in hand, and I think that was pretty much all we saw.
I mean...
Roach went in. I missed part of that, though.
Wait, what
so
happened?
many Nilfgaard cards on
Wait.
Oh, what happened here?
No. Oh.
Was there
Изначально плохой матчап.
I think there was a bug. I think he clicked on something and it returned something else. Yeah.
Возможно, это будет стоить ему матча.
Or he was trying to return the Cantarella.
Oh.
JJ's getting up. We're gonna figure this out, my friends. We're gonna try to find out what exactly happened here.
Что произошло?
Yeah, I was looking at the deck list for a second there, but
yeah, I looked down.
It was definitely a Zyre. It was definitely a Zyre. I think he returned Cantarella instead of Roach.
Well, no, Cantarella was still in the graveyard.
No, but both players played it.
Of course. Yeah. Yes, Cantarella was in his graveyard. It's tough because there's a lot of the same cards in the screen at the same time, and I was looking down at the deck list, and then I wasn't. If this is a game bug, then I have not seen it. I have not seen this one before. We're gonna get this figured out, my friends.
There's gonna be a restart.
Is that so? Okay,
there's gonna be a restart. Apparently there was a
будет
very
переигровка, это
bug,
нечестно будет.
and we're gonna have to redo this match all over again.
That is a new one.
Yeah, I've never seen that bug before.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk to all the times to look down at the deck list. I feel like that was a very split second. You missed it for a second, but you all saw it.
No,
definitely all saw it.
It was a Zyre. It was a Zyre into Cantarella.
Cantarella хану плотву.
Man, that was a really tight game.
Из-за чего? Из-за неправильного отображения?
Now there's so much information out there now. Like the Igni is not a surprise. Even Spy is not a surprise. Spies weren't a surprise for long, but it's a lot of information.
Типа переигровка, что ли?
Yeah. It was in the client. Okay. So this isn't something that you would see.
Надо было играть, если типа 4 очка не хватало.
It was probably a very, very fringe case. It's possible. It's possible that the game is just haven't seen spies in so long. The game forgot how to process the spy matchup. You can find some humor in this, my friend.
Они в кости играют, какие крутые ребята. Только кости не хорошие.
Game 1, you're focused, you're in the zone, but then, you know, the layers of stress set in here. But I think that both these players seem pretty collected.
Meanwhile, they're rolling dice.
Oh yeah, dice poker is
fascinating.
Там проигрывал JJ.
This no RNG and dice rolling, definitely not.
Я не думаю, что это его спасло бы. Плотва и Cantarella.
I'm very interested to see how this regame will play out after this information.
Какой зонг.
I mean, as you said, like the Igni, even though it wasn't revealed, it was quite telegraphed multiple times.
Oh, for sure.
So, and Hannah-chan always made the play to avoid it. So,
Он там не назывался зонком.
I don't think even that will be a surprise factor. I think right off the bat, when Hannah-chan led off with a slave driver, he already had the information. Like, it's not like he knew what he was facing, like, right at the beginning, but it's definitely important to know that, you know, he hasn't seen Iris, for example, which is very important.
Yeah,
Iris is the key, like, when it comes to surprise factor for JJ. Like, Hannah-chan has not seen it, so he can't, like, guarantee that it's there. And when it comes to Hannah-chan's alchemy, it's rather standard.
Несправедливо.
Very standard. The only thing he hasn't seen and may not be expecting as much is the
Ханна,
the single one of he does have.
типа Вильги Форс,
run a single Vicovaro medic of his own, which I find is very interesting. And also, I think that it's interesting that JJ's list for spies
и там типа Cantarella могла затесаться.
But it's untraditional in the fact that he brought it. that's like that's the refreshing thing about the list.
Справедливость, я думаю,
itself
восторжествует.
it doesn't hold too many surprises outside of maybe Girl Digny, but you know these are the best players. Hannah Chen coming, so yeah, you could make the case that that knowledge isn't too much, and if Hannah Chen is putting JJ at having a very complete and formidable Nilfgaard spy deck, then he could maybe put JJ on the missing cards, as there was only a couple that he didn't see. So we're gonna get back into this here. Same thing, Hannah Chen leading off on the blue coin.
There's a big difference here, though. JJ does not have access to Cantarella, and that is quite the big deal, as it was a big component of his game plan last time around. So he's definitely gonna have to alter things. This is not a good opening.
Что решили, это я пропустил своим интернетом. Ну, переигровка.
Which obviously you want to play out as early as possible in most cases, but because of the inherent.
Хотя я думаю, там бы проигрывал все-таки Джей.
Precisely talking about the Viper School Witchers there. Hannah Chan's ability to remove that engine is extremely easy, and it makes so JJ has to sequence a little bit differently, as he does opt to go for Stefan Skellen, getting Roach out of the deck and putting Rainfarn on top, making him a 10 strength tutor instead of 5.
Yeah, and that'll help him a lot to get Cantarella later and barely pay for it. Rainfarn coming in with that +5 buff on top.
Problem is,
making a lot easier to play.
This turn.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it this turn.
For sure he does.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays around this time around, and what he's
Сейчас
get
посмотрим,
with Runestone. I like the Runestone premiums, by the way.
Oh yeah, they look great. Yeah. A lot of the new aesthetics are in Gwent for this challenger here. We got all the premiums finally fleshed out.
And the best order.
Oh yeah.
Oh, these
Нельзя играть.
These are awful.
I mean, I guess
Нет, Альбрехт, господи, да ну.
JJ saw this coming.
That's the most calculated.
Ну это явно подкручено.
Oh wow, that's actually terrible.
I mean, you play
could take the other two.
After Skellen is played, you play the Albrecht. I mean, you're giving your opponent like the best thing, exactly what he wanted. That is a tough decision. I mean, when you do Skellen and Roach, it's bad. It was bad.
That's
подкрутили ханычан.
That was
wow. It was forced.
You know,
it was forced.
In the regame, these are going to be the deciding things.
Типа.
Oh man, like I was gonna say, like there's no way, like there's like no
Там, короче, багал JJ. Самое. Там переигровка. Ханычан. Там, короче, JJ себе этого, как его, сопливого. Не, сопливый это Скельн. Как того звать? Ну, короче, у него его нет в руке, нечем крутануть. Давай-ка ты, Ханычан, достанешь JJ-ю.
Not to see here, and he's just going to go for the pass. He's going to hold on to Rainfarn. He's got a healthy lead here. 17 points is not nothing.
Points needed for Hannah Chen, which may require Triss telekinesis. Wait, Triss telekinesis won't do it.
Yeah,
I was thinking of like Triss into reconnaissance, but no, John Calvate is the only way.
На 18 сходить Ханычану.
Yeah, John Calvate into
Ну, типа, Кальвейт там кричат ограниченные комментаторы.
Get very lucky because he has two of them in hand already. He's gonna go for Triss telekinesis.
There's no recon, I think, in this matchup. No one's running it. So this is either Marjoram, Ale, or Ointment. That's how Triss is always going to be here. Oh, with
Roach. Never mind. Oh, okay.
The Roach will save his bacon a little bit. Surprise.
Yeah. Forgot about Roach there for a second. All right, never mind. Hannah Chen able to get the round 1 win right there.
Не захотел он следить.
Punishing JJ quite a bit, but at the same time, JJ does have Rainfarn.
Ну, прокрутить платушку.
And can potentially play an only -3 tempo Cantarella.
It's a lot of alchemy in the hand right there.
Это правильно. Типа, сейчас он может сыграть все, кроме Кагыра. И может забафать себе с помощью грибов. Кальвейта и там... Все неплохо должно быть. Хотя у него 3 притирки в руке. 3 притирки в руке.
So you have to, shorten the round. So this is actually not looking bad for JJ, I think.
JJ's in a pretty good position. He's a card up. He has a 3-point Cantarella, which is not bad.
This is like the most obvious Viper Witcher ever. Like
Ну, первый пулеметчик пошел. Второй пулеметчик пошел.
he's making him have it. He's like, sure, you can kill my engines, but you better have it.
We follow Letham's lead.
И третий из Кальвейта по классике.
Donga's gonna go in the third. Like, he's thinking about, you know, him getting punished for like a third Viper Witcher because that would be a big loss of tempo and it would make JJ
Зато убьют бригаду.
lose a little bit of the upper hand that he's gained throughout this, you know, situation. But he's gonna go into Imperial Forces regardless. He's gonna bop the Imperial Brigade, and is 5 points behind Hannah-chan here.
Кальвейта в притирке. Притирка, погонщик и кончик, кстати, там нет, да? Кладбище. Да, Кальвейт. Ух ты, не хочет. Хочет. Мандрагора? Мне не нравится ход с Мандрагорой.
But he's still got the Imperial Brigades.
Do the Calvate dance, or sorry, the Kalak dance, touchdown, drop an emissary, get right back up.
Там развесь чурес. А, это прикольно.
Yeah, that's great.
Yours is mine again.
He's done 3 more Imperial Brigades, so this increments his engine potential by 1. So
там еще ход со шпиком темповый висит. Но нельзя шпика играть Джею, потому что... Хотя... Этот... Егор... Да ладно.
So Kalak into Kalak.
Yeah, he hasn't played it. He played Trace. Never mind.
Не забывай, Слава, я понимаю, Рака. Это в начале стиля.
Great value on that drunk emissary.
15 points.
Ну это к чему было сказано?
He's heavy with the weight of Mahakame.
Indeed. We're gonna see the emissary drop on the siege road there. We're gonna pick up the
slave driver.
Take a look at the opposing
Я вроде не гнал ни на кого из игроков.
And is going to, you know, being a rather, I mean, I guess Nausicaa Brigade is his best option here.
I think this is starting to look better and better for JJ as it goes on, especially considering he has the that super discounted Cantarella.
He's gonna have to go for the Imperial Enforcer, and that was a 9-point slave driver, which is not that great considering like average slave driver value, right? So
yeah, it's like your best thing +1 in most of the cases, which is usually pretty good. It's you know, it's a lot of bad juju around the slave driver. Some people don't like it very much.
I think JJ may have put Hannah-chan in a very bad spot with that pass. Even though Hannah-chan was able to get
ну а как я должен анализировать?
Getting Cantarella out of him.
Слава не будет только.
Forcing a pass on him so early
Предъявляет тут нет.
Makes it so that like that's the weakness of Alchemy Nilfgaard. It has to, you know,
Ну да, я думаю, что Супер Джей... Ну, Ханна-чан, может, еще волнуется, но для Джей вряд ли.
It's not the kind of deck that does that. You need to get the Macam's Ales out, and if you play Kahir, you need to play your John Calvate, because otherwise Kahir will be a 1-strength gold. So
неплохо.
We do see Rainfarn onto Cantarella for a -1 tempo Cantarella. So that was one of the least expensive Cantarellas ever.
Yeah, the game is still so close now, and JJ now has another card on Hannah-chan's going down to 5 cards. JJ sitting at this point. Just the longer the round goes, the harder round 3 becomes for Hannah-chan. JJ still has bomb cards too. He still has Menno hiding in there somewhere.
If he has to play the Vicar Varnovis in the back. If the Macam Ale buff goes onto the Viper Witcher, he's in trouble.
Oh, okay. Dodges it. Now Igni is
это сейчас у Ханна-чана, кстати, проблема, да? Они карточные.
That beer just
карточные темпе.
The raw person does not drink.
Drink responsibly, my friend.
Yeah. Otherwise, Igni will come for you and he'll burn you alive. It seems harsh, but
в отличие от предыдущей катки, где было все
Gonna go down and gonna bring down the Infiltrator on the range row. Gonna target the Vicar Varnovis on the melee. And Hannah-chan is sitting at a 9-point lead. Thinking about whether he should keep on pushing or not. Like, the thing is, JJ is sitting in a very comfortable situation right now. Like, his Imperial Brigades represent 12 strength. And will most likely be his next plays. But JJ has to be careful with, you know, not having a weak late game with Geralt Digny, Iris, you know, like he needs to sequence here properly and really think about how round 3 is going to work out, because Типа,
я думаю, Ханычан хочет сыграть все, что можно. А это пивас и... Нет. Это грустно, по-моему, для Ханычана.
Yeah, he could take the Igni value, which is, it may seem like overkill, but
Все бригаду отдаст.
А
бригады хватает.
6-6-12,
да, бригады хватает.
У
тебя Кейгорн не сыгранный. Кейгорн в колоде. Джей, у тебя Кейгорн в колоде. Зачем? Зачем этого дядю отдавать? Бригады не хватало. По-моему, бригад 12 давалось.
He has no answer whatsoever for Iris von Everett.
Yeah, all JJ needs to do is get that Nausicaa Brigade.
Actually, never mind. He does. He has Mardrum.
He does? Oh, the Mardrum.
Yeah, he has Mardrum.
Which he has shown
12 хватало.
That's gonna be interesting.
Голод в данной игре, кстати, за немца. Но... это JJ, не знаю. Но то, что там в первой карточке произошло, мне не понравилось. Полуло, переигровка. Ущемление прав Ханычана. Подкруточка. Специально Джею подкрутили багулю, чтобы переигровку научить. А потом еще Ханычану подкрутили этого Альберта топового. Кейгорн все равно не нашел мисс JJ.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of ointments, I think, for these Viper Witchers and ways
to
get it.
Да ничего не закончил.
Go look, and there's only 5 cards left.
Я думаю, после... Еще счет 0-0. После этого матча я закончу им, ребят. Смотреть, как талый бот с каким-то ноунеймом играет, не хочется. Потому что... Кстати, первые 3 карточки еще более-менее норм. А талый бот против ноунейма. Буду болеть за ноунейма в душе, но смотреть не буду.
He may be hinting at Hannah-chan that he wants to utilize Joaquin onto Nausicaa Brigade, but in reality, he wants it for the Iris. If Hannah-chan just drops the Mardrum too early, it will be devastating for him. He
проблема в том, что сейчас Ханычан карту проигрывает, и он не сможет грибом трахнуть. И риску, но проблема в том, что Джей риску не может трахнуть. Ничего.
I mean, is there going to be a reason for Hannah-chan to play that Mardrum earlier? Like, there's not. I mean, if he's just going to go ahead and
есть ли у него вторая бригада Импера, чтобы побить риску? Только до конца? Не. Я один сегодня. Darkness не смог. Не хочешь смотреть талый бот играть. Не за кого болеть, парень. Ну, типа за ноунеймом.
He's thinking here because he's expecting Joaquin. He's expecting Joaquin, so he's going for Virgo Force. He will give him value here.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you just.
But it's just like 10 points basically. Oh, that's big.
Rolling a.
Okay, this is very important. Oh, a goal is very nice. A goal is huge.
Это круто слишком.
Oh my god.
Подкрутили обратно Ханычану.
That chain is bonkers.
That's such a massive play. 26. No, there's more than 20. Well, he lost a little bit too, but he's ahead by 33 points. And, I mean, at least Igni can solve some of this.
Yeah, Igni will find home there. Igni will be 22 points, which is a lot, but that play was
Было чем убить все же.
Yeah, he's gonna go for the
he'll get Igni on the 17. He'll get Roach out as well. But those brigades are going to be boosted up to 12 each. It's closer than it looks still.
It's closer than it looks, but
because that Marjoram is just going to be it'll knock some points off.
Да.
But Hanachan has a lot of points here. That Vilga Forge was just nuts, absolutely nuts. Maybe he played out that Iris too early on, enabling that Vilga Forge.
Yeah, it gave him the option. But all his units are just getting killed anyway. It was a tough spot actually.
It was like that one copy of Marjoram is actually really effective in this matchup here. He may be expecting. He just returns.
I don't think that affects anything.
No, it doesn't affect anything. Marjoram is gonna go down.
Cards here.
Хорошо. Справедливость восторжествовала, Ханчан сыгрался. Молодец.
We're seeing a tremendous strength gap here.
That Village of Force was just unfair.
Я в начале партии сказал, что не без разницы, кто выиграет. Ну, буду болеть за JJ. Если выиграет Ханчан, это тоже норм.
Well, you know, you're trying to play engines against a control deck. It's tough. It is tough.
Yeah. I think this Spy Nilfgaard is there for a different reason, though.
Yeah.
And I think that reason resides in the archipelago.
Yes. So, what would be really good with 3
Маленько. Если бы вот не поторопился с риской. Болеть за Ханчана. Ну вот у нас Женька, типа, противостояние. Я могу как-то подтраливать Ханчана кому-нибудь на зло. Например, Женьки. Вот Ханчан Лакирок. 5 очков ему перевес. Если бы JJ позже сыграл и риску, о, в ужас за пивасом отправили, самого молодого. О, победил.
We're in the Mahaka Mines. That's genuine. That's the real deal right there.
Лук дали. Павки. Это пивас, наверное. Картонки там или картишки лежат.
Everything's on the level, of course. So yeah, so if you're running a spy list with 3 Vikovar medics, great swords, you're plucking everything out of the grave.
Я не особо следил внимательно за тем моментом, почему JJ сыграл именно в тот момент и риску.
He is teching towards that, and it's going to be very interesting. Really going to come down to that. But Hanachan does take the first win with John Calvate, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Game number 2.
Saving his great swords, as JJ has great swords of his own.
Я не знаю, мне наоборот норм смотреть типа на знакомых личностей, нежели на каких-то непонятных ребят.
Now it's interesting. Both players are. Super JJ's great sword list has some cool stuff in it.
Ну типа никак не могут попасть. Ну типа на челленджер ноунеймы могут попасть только типа через отборы, как попал тот чувак, который будет играть сталым ботом. Вот. В другой же раз, типа в обычный же раз на челленджер попадают ребята с опенов. А с опенов мы типа смотрим опены, и мы знаем ребята с опенов, поэтому на челленджер будут ребята с опенов, и мы их знаем. Пау-пау. Не играл в гвинт. Такого со среды. Среды я в гвинт не играл. Может быть завтра. Длиннобурые кучмечники, ну да. Ну, я думаю, типа и у тех есть шансы. А кто первый ходил? Первый ходил мечник. Это не такие мечники, как у меня, со статуэткой отдельно, с намордником. То есть мои мечники, типа, типа, неплохие шансы победить Гвинобрувера. Но опять же, Гвинобруверы бывают разные.
This is a very fascinating matchup because Greatswords is a deck that thrives in a short round, while Swarm Scoia'tael is a very snowbally deck to two cards like Head Vanguard, right? It swarms the board with elves, and then it gets those huge tempo swings that it builds up to very nicely. And it's also a deck that is very well known for being efficiently when going second, as it does have the Brewer Hook into Barclay Elves into Cleaver combo, which will not happen this matchup because we do see Barclay Elves in his opening hand, so it will be a little bit weakened, but the fact that he's going second still matters a whole lot. The thing is, because Scoia'tael doesn't really have any way to interact with the opposing graveyard or disrupt their strategy in that sense, they have a difficult time stopping or dealing with a massive power rest. So their way to avoid that from happening is to disrupt the engines in round one. And we do see Siru, which can really capitalize on, you know, the greedy proactive strategy, and there is a pass
Достроил хан. А чё, ну, алхимии хан может играть по праву, потому что он играл на алхимии еще миллион лет назад, когда еще на шпиках играли. Ну, Гвинобрувер, почему бы нет. Ну, он шмель взял это, и что-то не сошло шмелем. Ну, вон Калимон взял Гвинобрувера, ему тоже что-то не зашло. Поэтому...
Barclay Elves Cleaver combo hasn't even been used. You can imagine that Brewer's going to be pulling Yavin to make this a little bit better for Hannah-chan.
А Hannah-chan пришел побеждать, а не шутить.
Because even though Greatswords does tend to have an advantageous matchup a lot of times, not so much in a long round here.
Hannah-chan уже и так косарь баксов заработал. То есть, прикинь, катка на косарь баксов. Типа... Лол. Да любой глиной можно обмазаться, чтобы играть. Лишь бы заработать косарь баксов. Лол.
Because he has not generated enough of a strength gap, and that could encourage Hannah-chan to pass.
Well, Barclay too. Barclay just surges Hannah-chan ahead, and from there he can do basically whatever he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
It's such a strong play with 10 cards in hand.
Понятен мне маленько пас.
Hannah-chan to play into this round. Like JJ wants a short round, even though Hannah-chan is running Shiru, which changes things quite a bit, as Shiru can actually deal with a massive power res of an on-crate greatsword.
Пока искоммуниздили, нужно тусануть, чтобы там по картам не просесть. Туда-сюда.
But we see Hannah-chan with the pass. Oh man, I don't like this for JJ. I don't think, even though he has war longships as solid engines for a relatively long round, Elf Scoia'tael is just monstrous, absolutely monstrous. As this is a very easy pick. He's going to pick the Freya and send the on-crate greatsword to the graveyard. Like I said, this is tough. Even though we only see Hannah-chan's Shiru as a
слишком много нужно играть длинный, чтобы попасть на турнир.
When it comes to Hannah-chan's lineup, it's still
не всем по силам это.
I don't know. I don't like it.
Я попробую как-нибудь задрать.
Power bombs.
Yeah, and I mean, like a lot of the setup that JJ is trying to do for the late round 3, you know, we're in round 3 now. Nothing much has happened.
Тем более я, если даже поеду на турик, я там разволнуюсь и ничего не заработаю. Как все наши герои.
With 4 golds in hand.
With 4 golds in hand, yeah, nice hand. You might just say nice hand right there for Hannah-chan.
And as long as he waits out, you know, if he preserves A-glaze for the very last play, he will 100% find value with it, like I said, into the artifact compression, which would be massive as a way to like just shut down a ship or an on-crate great store. Like Hannah-chan's hand is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. He has everything. He has answers to what his opponent is doing, and he has so much snowball. Like I don't know what Mark is saying.
Так, у нас все третий раунд.
We're gonna see it play out, but it's just, yeah, it's just all the pieces.
По картам ровно.
Into the Vanguard. Barkley can still get a huge swing with Cleaver. Shiru's
Пики сыграны, насколько я помню.
Anything if it gets large enough.
Но Супер JJ и секретный козырь в виде статуэтки.
You know, even if a glaze is the last play, at least it's gonna
Знаю, Рейд,
find value.
я не в курсе.
And then
Я же не играл в третий ведьмака.
Death here for Dwan, as the Elven Scout is, you know, just another solid card that just makes things even better in the future.
Elven Scout basically sets up another couple of elves onto the board, which, you know, enhances the overhead vanguards. Double officer into double vanguard is also going to be very, very strong. Hannah-chan has to drop that Barkley
Там грустно скорчать,
as early as possible, though, because he is missing out.
Плюс статуэтка рабочая.
The more this round progresses, the, you know, smaller his hand will be, and thus.
Хannah-chan, покажи помойку JJ. JJ, покажи свою помойку.
He has a total of.
Yeah, when
10.
he plays Cleaver, it'll be a 9-point play, so he could play it to kill the ship, but it's interesting because if Hannah-chan leaves these ships up, it actually denies JJ Corsair.
Yeah,
so
that may be the reason.
It actually makes JJ's hand just a little bit more awkward, but then again, is it really worth giving up that Cleaver value? Those are the questions that are likely going to be answered right here.
Yeah, you have to go Barkley here.
Flopping.
Yeah, he does it. He doesn't want. Yeah,
he's not killing the ship.
Yeah, exactly. Just hitting a bigger ship, and he's not enabling that. So this pirate captain right there. All right, let's take a look at his list. This pirate captain is only pull a Corsair. Like, there's nothing else to pull right there.
Yeah.
Which
that makes things difficult because
that card.
The ships aren't going to die. The ships aren't going to die. Yeah, so it makes the pirate captain awkward. You know, everything else in JJ's hand is pretty decent. If he's able to get a great sword to stick, at least he'll be able to use the Heimei Spear Maiden to get it out.
Необычный колода у JJ. Как обычно. Как обычно, необычный колода у JJ. Турнирные варианты. Но я пока не понимаю его. Общие идеи, к чему он готовился.
He knows Corsairs are a thing, and he knows the chances of him having a dead card like that. Oh, this muzzle, though.
Good pickup. Good pickup. There's going to be a lot of elves hitting the board.
He needs to be careful, though, not having, you know, that
готовился к глинобруйеру.
Well. Like, Shiru is a threat, but the thing is, do you expect Shiru? Because it's not in every Scoia'tael.
Видимо, глинобруйеру, ибо штыки, типа, контроля мало у глинобруйера.
Yeah, it isn't many. But it's not in everyone. So,
no, it's not in everyone.
But you could definitely expect.
You could definitely play around it and probably be fine there. But the thing is, I think that
Но обычно хватает, то есть Исаак, Ида и Йорвик. Теоретически так играют на Брувере. Ну и типа один из пулеметчиков выживет и по кайфу. А может и не один, если там развести Исака куда-нибудь, в такое место. Кто там? Второй этот.
Yeah, but I think you have to play Nova with this deck.
Вкусно, эти будут одинаковыми,
we can show around otherwise, and in a tournament like this, it can really be capitalized on. So
100%, man.
We see the head officer dropping down there.
Один доплер, да, по-моему, в колоде
picking up an Elven mercenary for Hannah-chan right there, which will search for either a reconnaissance or a Doppler.
Теоретически он может подровнять как-то так, чтобы с скворчом двух мечников сжечь. Опять же, мечников сжигать понта нет, потому что птичка есть.
And there's the fog. That's quite solid for JJ. That's another quote-unquote engine, aka an ongoing damaging effect. You know, that's gonna get more value throughout. You know, the longer the round is. The problem is, even with all these effects, even with the triple shit ticking, even with the double greatsword ticking, even with
Помните,
the
я как-то играл в это?
Hana-chan has all the answers.
Наверное, краснолюдской. Там неплохо мне удавалось подвигушки сделать для мечников. Надо мечника двигать. Мечника. Мечника в средний ряд или в нижний ряд. Посчитай. Он правда не знает, что там, по-моему, есть девочка. Рыжая. А в колоде есть мечник. Нет. Да пофиг. Тогда, по-моему, рыжая пустая. Там рыжая пустая, ребят. Ибо 3 корабля на поле, да, а рыжая пустая. Ну, хотя на медведя может быть. Может быть, на медведя.
Two dead cards versus 4 gold. Who you got, Mogwai?
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Farseer is the way to go here, I believe.
Ну, оракул, естественно.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's not much else to do. Hana-chan just fortifying his board a little bit more. I wonder if he will get a lineup for that smuggler. The ship's just gonna outpace.
Вопрос, поверит ли Хана-чан, что там нету... Нету спыла, вот в чем речь. И есть ли у JJ медведь? Я думаю, есть. Медведь в колоде. И рыжая не пустая.
I believe that was 23 points in
total. Ай-яй-яй.
It's really interesting. You get to see there's the artifact compression. Agla's active.
Yep. Agla's can find home now. And Hana-chan probably trying to calculate
захотел терпеть,
can find greater value with Scorch, but I don't think he needs that. That was very strong though. Like that like JJ does have a very strong lead here. Like
JJ пока не понимает, что он сделал.
Really ahead here.
It's pretty massive right here.
But this just sets it up.
It's a really interesting, it's an interesting showcase of tempo versus engine right here, as he just nods.
Oh.
That just feels bad.
Yeah, there's no getting out of this for JJ.
She was strong.
JJ в пролете.
Pretty strong too. It's pretty powerful.
She was actually.
Вот прикольно, если Хана-чан 3-0 разнесет JJ.
She was massive. I think you may make a case for just playing Nova, honestly. Yep, just go Nova.
Just go Nova. There's going to be the concede.
Don't make me laugh.
We're going to get it. Oh, maybe not. He's going to actually just go ahead and go through it.
Давай.
Yep.
И слабые карты.
He's not out of it yet, but he is out of it. Not until you see the last card.
And that Scorch doesn't even need to line up.
Doesn't even look close after that last card played here. JJ down 2-0.
Слабые карты у него. Если бы хоть что-то сыграло нормально. Статуэтка мимо, рыжая мимо. Даже, господи, пиратик и тот мимо. Видишь, как грамотно Хана-чан сыграл? Сыграл нову, чтобы не дать сыграть пиратика. Мышку Хана-чана. Ой, какой там толстый. Кто бы это мог быть? Штаны у него пуховые.
At least he wasn't on the receiving end this time around.
All of our friends showing up here.
Этот скупка пьет или как он?
Always a good time here at Gwen Challenger. We always have something going
Бокал,
on.
да,
First Mashina Castle, now the deep lines of Mahakam Castle.
Я можно только посочувствовать. Ну, он взял колоды необычные. И вот еще одно что-то. Это Жор, видимо, обычно. Хотя Жор с ключником. Ну, GG готовился к аннигиляции белок. Что-то пошло не так.
JJ's just so you guys know, JJ's ways to disrupt the greatsword strategy in this deck are Caretaker, Muzzle, Artifact Compression, which he's running as well. Those three cards right there can just completely capitalize on, you know, the graveyard-focused gameplay of greatswords, and his entire lineup is designed to take down this deck. This is what he has been waiting for. He may be down 2 games.
Сейчас будет обмен намордниками, нет? Происходящее на фоне? Я не знаю. Я думаю, ни насколько их отвлекает происходящее на фоне, потому что они в наушниках с белым шумом. Там капельки вставляются с игрой, а потом наушники с белым шумом, и они не слышат происходящее вокруг. А смотреть они не смотрят, потому что они сконцентрированы на игре, и все. Ну, ответ, думаю, будет такой же мазлянский. Мазл намазал. Сейчас он, конечно, потянет время для веревки. Потом сыграет намордник. Ну, если это обычный...
And I mean, Consume has. Oh, JJ's played Consume before. What am I talking about? We've seen Consume before when he played Adzakov in the finals. That's how he beat Henselt.
Но проблема в чем? А, не, нормально.
But I think that in this situation, JJ just knows
сейчас надо есть накера.
Make so many points in the end of the game. One great sword
есть накера.
I like this greatsword drop onto the next to the ship instead of following it up with the ship. He wants to disperse
боковое зрение есть.
Strength points of these greatswords as much as possible because he does know he's facing a faction that does have a lot of graveyard hate, not only in the forms of Caretaker, but also a very common.
Опять же, я говорю, если приплетать сюда бабло, то как бы, если ты не первый раз на турнире, то можно сконцентрироваться. Не первый, не второй раз. Это оба игрока как бы бывалые уже.
Favor the matchup more as he's going to opt to go for a Priest of Freya onto the big boy.
Yeah, just wants to make sure that it's not in the graveyard because I'm pretty sure he knows that like Hannah-chan needs to prevent everything from taking that out of the graveyard.
Анчан вообще он даже не думает особо. Хоп-хоп, резнул мечник, хоп-хоп, резнул корабль.
You wanna get out of that round because you want to be the one who has the first say. And the thing is, if you give your opponent round one, you are running the risk of him potentially 2-0.
Анчан, ты на бабки играешь, дружище. Торопишься.
It's hard to 2-0 Consume, especially when they have their Necker Warrior engine going. Like, this is one of the most, this is actually the most proactive deck out there in Gwen. So out muscling it, not gonna happen.
Yeah, and the 2-0ing is usually prevented because Erica's Queen's final say is so strong. But ultimately, like, the best way to beat Consume is to tap them out of all of their options.
Две карты проиграл.
Ultimately, you're creating, Hannah-chan is creating the
Скеллиги на мечниках могут проигрывать.
In this gigantic graveyard that JJ will be able to play first. But if Hannah-chan is able to
скорее всего, Озрила нету в колоде у KJ, я думаю, чтобы сожрать мечника, поэтому... Зато есть ключник внезапный. Вот внезапный ключник это прям, да. Внезапный ключник подпортит пичку Ханна-чану. Это полюбас. Под Жора не ждешь ключник.
is
Поэтому
representing a massive lead here.
у JJ такой
More than double JJ's current score.
жор с секретом. Там лютик, там мазл, там ключник. Какая последняя карта? Ну, кухарка вряд ли, я думаю, какой-нибудь Феникс. И...
That was 7, right?
There are 6 left.
There's 6, yeah, there were 7 there. There's 6 left.
Ah, Phoenix.
I'm gonna try to keep track of that because you know, I have a history with counting neckers in casting tournaments.
Challenger 2 is a classic moment of not so fast.
All right, here we go, Scowl.
Oh yeah,
do Herald House now.
Just kind of showing up back in the Gravesword list, back in the Skellige
Он
list.
сейчас ест.
Took a little vacation, but he's back. We've seen him twice now, I think.
Я думаю, даже королеву главоглазов отдаст. Ест единичку и двух накеров.
Yeah, well, the skull gets double necker and the skulls, or the Ericus Queen.
Arrakis Queen, yeah, I like this Ericus Queen here. Gonna chomp down on a necker here.
Я, может, даже одного накера.
I think at this point
Еще одного накера.
He needs to.
Не, не жаден.
So he's gonna get the double. This is gonna really put JJ in a better position here. It's a little closer, 75 to 92, as the Great Swords grow.
И 2-5.
And Dandelion Poet is gonna
not slowing down at
Не, два, там еще
he's fishing. He's pushing.
5 накеров.
He knows how important it is.
Yeah, like he knows the situation he's in because he's won round 1. He knows how vulnerable he is to Caretaker, Osro. It doesn't matter. Like any sort of graveyard disruption card will just basically make him lose a short round. So he's diving in. But the thing is, as these neckers continue to cycle,
it's
gonna be tough.
I think there's 3 left in the deck now.
Если там игни какой-нибудь.
He's gonna get to cycle 2 more here. It's like, it's basically go mode for both of these players.
And
JJ finally gets ahead here. Hannah-chan's just like, nope, we're still playing.
Jonga goes down, gonna capitalize on 2 skulls, and gonna get some very nice value, getting a very solid lead over JJ there.
JJ's gonna sight, he's just making sure. I think he has 1 left to cycle with the Barbagazi, but then that's it. But I think if JJ can make it to round 3, that Caretaker is just huge.
Exactly. Like, he just needs to not get too owed here. That's all he needs to do.
Well, with Hannah-chan now with Udalric, I mean, is JJ safe?
It
seems like he is. Especially because that Brand Warrior will proc as well. Yeah, he's going for it. Oh, that coral! Oh,
это прикольно. Коралл на...
That's very, very.
Переовер, если, конечно, хватит статов.
Coral, he will have to. He's gonna tap out JJ of reason.
Oh my God! Wait.
What a draw!
Wait.
JJ can Slizzard, and then he's gonna have to play Caretaker, and I think that.
Wait, what does Caretaker hit though?
Caretaker hits nothing.
Oh my, that coral.
It hits nothing. It's double bad. It hits nothing now, and it's not around for round 3.
It's over.
And it's over for round 3 either, because this is just gonna be it here.
3-0.
3-0.
You can see it in the face of JJ. Wow.
Unfortunate for JJ. Hannah-chan is your champion of this quarterfinals matchup with the 3-0 sweep against JJ, looking for the Great Sword targeting. Finally,
JJ 3-0.
And ultimately, that is going to be it. Hannah-chan takes it down in an impressive display. Really didn't lose composure there. We did have that weirdness in the first game, but ultimately, I think Hannah-chan brought some great lists, and he did a great job, and he is a very good Great Swords player. He definitely knew exactly the way to do it. The only way you do it. Push, push, push. What else can you say about that?
I'm so shocked. I'm so impressed. I was really convinced that JJ was not going to be too owed there.
Ну и, скорее всего,
the fact that he had a dead Slizzard in hand, like, Hannah-chan did a phenomenal job.
Ну, просто неинтересно было, если бы мы все были за Хannah-чана, ребят. Ну, Даркнесса нет, вот если бы был бы Даркнесс, то мы там бы разделились. Кто за Хannah-чана, кто за JJ. А так я понял, что, ну, вы, наверное, больше Hannah-чана, наверное, поэтому кто-то должен пройти против системы из-за JJ, поэтому вот так вот. Значит, что я хотел? Информчан молодец, и, скорее всего, завтра он будет играть сталым ботом. А сталым ботом он, по-моему, играл в финале, да, прошлого опена. А? Или Саджикова. Ну, сталым ботом. Ну и то есть, смогет ли повторить Ханычан победу над талым ботом, мы узнаем завтра. А возможно не над талым ботом, а над новичком, темной лошадкой.
So how are you feeling when you saw his lineups in terms of the spies and the general tech cards based on your lineups and it kind of appearing that he was teching against great
Ребят,
swords?
ладно, я думаю, я свой долг исполнил. Вот. За талым ботом не хочу наблюдать. Таня, давай. Ну да, будет прикольно, там Фредди Бейбс против Хайни посмотреть.
I think that spies were actually pretty dangerous, but the other ones, I
think,
I chose
pretty good matchups
against them.
I'll agree. I mean,
Ну, сейчас будет минут 15, только прелюдия к игре с талым ботом.
Do you have a preference in terms of which of those opponents you'd prefer to play against?
现在你的对手可以是一个是 Apologize， 第二个是 Tailbot。
Поэтому
你觉得哪个更合适？
Не хочу смотреть на талого бота.
我觉得作为对手的话，显然
Ребят,
Tailbot 要更合适，因为我认为他要稍强一点。
I think that more suitable opponent would be Tailbot, because my matchups are better against him.
Well, considering you won the last Open, do you feel confident that you can take it all the way with this challenger?
你觉得你现在可以赢这场比赛吗？
就这个挑战赛。Yes, I can.
Well, I'm very excited to see what happens tomorrow.
Darkness
First, we have one more match to play. So congratulations to you, Hannah-chan. And over to Jesse now.
Jagras, okay. Well, it's that time we should check back in with our Bard friends.
Давайте, ребят. Не смотри, слушай. Хочется.
Yo, I'll call next on that.
Я тут еще посижу маленько. Прячусь от вас. Так вот. Дарка, ну, сорян. Я делишки комментирую. Жарко, дико дома. Стриптиз на стриме запрещен. Ну что такое, Роскомнадзор, хватит. Хватит, я только забыл про тебя. Как накосячит толстый в этот раз? Горшок там у них горит, по-моему. Курочка, кости, червь. Под ведьмы здесь жил. Шепчущий холм сейчас их съест. So once again we see our crew this time. Да, знал бы я, о чем ты еще поешь. У Геральта белки? Нет, там нет Геральта. Просто зарисовочку. Это типа ведьма или чё? Или дедуля самогонщик? Ой-ой. Ой-ой. Короче, тизер сериала от Netflix, ребят. Когда шевелится, видели? Анатолий он самогона сварил. О, сейчас будет полчаса аналитики. От свима. От свимки Пеппы. Ладно, ребят. Ты хочешь что-то такое? Ходи. Как меня не отпускали, как мило. Не знаю. Ну, в принципе, я не буду стрим вырубать.
It's kind of a risky strategy because number one, you're hoping that your opponent brings the card or the decks that you want to target, and on top of that, I think it helps a lot if the deck that you're targeting gets played early. Whereas Hana-chan played Great Swords as his final deck, which means that the deck that Super JJ was trying to find wins against didn't happen until game 3, so he had to try and find wins with decks that maybe weren't optimized for the matchups that they were in.
Yeah, it's important to realize it's very much kind of an all-or-nothing strategy, and I kind of want to explain more like what this targeting is, because specifically the format of this tournament is conquest. Conquest meaning you have to win with every one of your decks. What you can do as a tournament player, and what JJ is quite famous for, and many other players have utilized, is basically design your lineup around just guaranteeing that you can beat one deck. And when you do that, it doesn't actually matter how the other matchups go. If you expect your opponent to bring one deck and you have a lineup that deck can't beat, then you can never lose.
I think the problem for JJ, you're saying having a lineup that deck can't beat, but he tried to beat Great Swords with Consume, and that, I think, in this case was his folly because, Great Swords is such a strong engine deck, and we saw the Hana-chan managed to 2-0 JJ, despite JJ's deck being teched against Great Swords.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a dicey matchup for sure in that way.
I think the one other thing, I guess, to note in terms of this matchup is just how cleanly Hana-chan played. Hana-chan went for an alternative strategy. So instead of going for the targeting strategy, he just brought some decks that are pretty good. And ultimately, that turned out to be the way that he won. And this is the thing with targeting, is it's a risk. And I think Great Swords was a safe choice given how well it did at Gwent Open.
Yeah.
But considering how varied decks we've seen here, it looks like the players are starting to diversify, and I think targeting is going to become a much more difficult strategy going forward.
Yeah, I really like this this idea of bringing like Spies Nilfgaard as well. The 3 Vikov medics, of course, doing just incredibly well against Great Swords, but of course, when you don't hit that matchup, it ends up not mattering.
Yep, but with Hana-chan taking that victory, it means that he moves forward in the bracket and will be going up against the winner of either Tailbot or I Apologize, which we have coming up as the last set of this day. It's sure to be an exciting match, but before we get into that, we have another little video for you guys, so stay tuned.
Now we shall see who's more devious and slick. Apologize or Tailbot hides the most deadliest trick.
So we get into our next set, I Apologize versus Tailbot. Now, I Apologize is a complete underdog, a newcomer to the scene, and of course Tailbot, famously the Annihilator, is, despite not actually winning an event yet, one of the most consistent performers in these lands.
Yeah, Tailbot is a name that you see very often in finals and semi-finals.
Yes.
He's not one of these players who bows out at the first hurdle. He usually makes it pretty far, but has yet to quite pip the post and take home that win. With that said, he is a player that exudes confidence, and he will be feeling pretty confident going into this matchup. Whereas for I Apologize, this is his first ever LAN, and he's relatively unknown within the competitive tournament scene. So it will be interesting to see whether that gets to him.
Yeah, and here we see both participants' leaders, Tailbot electing to bring Dagon, which is typically the Death Wish leader, as we saw utilized by Adzikov as well. And I apologize with Emir, which again, as we've said, is just kind of a wild card. It can be really 3 or 4 different decks here.
Yeah, Emir, we've seen Alchemy, we've seen Spies. Will we see Hand Buff? Like, this is the deck that players aren't able to predict, and it'll be interesting to see whether, well, what it is that I Apologizes chooses to bring, and whether he can overcome Tailbot, who, like I said, is known just for being a consistently good player. Like, he usually brings decks which are quite common within the meta, but he plays them so cleanly, and that is why people consider him potentially the best Gwent player just over, you know, the long term rather than in specific tournaments.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And of course, Tailbot, one of the most notable things about his lineup is that he's not actually bringing Squirtle, most notably Bruverhoog, which is, like I said, one of the most are guarded to be stronger decks, especially when you can control the coin flip, because that's really how that deck plans out its strategy. So we'll really have to see how that works out. I'm excited to see which of these decks he kind of went with and foregoing that as an option.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is sure in Gwent, especially not here at Challenger, given the decks that we've seen. But some of you guys are sure in terms of who you think is going to win. We do have the results of the current Twitter poll of whether I Apologize or Tailbot is favored, and 90% Tailbot, 10% I Apologize. Are you surprised?
Well, keep in mind that, of course, nobody has had the opportunity to see I Apologize at a local event yet. So, realistically, betting for him is just kind of playing the long odds. But I'm pretty excited to see how he turns out. He is one of the consistently performing ladder players. And, of course, you know, making his way to Challenger 3. I'd really like to see him do well.
See, what's interesting is the last person who kind of showed up out of nowhere and did really well was Kolomoen, who did get knocked out 0-3 today, but is also I Apologize's teammate, because they're both on top deck. So it'll be interesting to see whether he can do old Kolomoen and come out of nowhere and win, or do went Challenger 3 Kolomoen. And I mean, it would be nice to see, you know, a game go to 5 games, because I don't think we've had that today.
Not yet, no.
But we'll have to wait and find out, as this match is shortly going to get underway. But first, we have another video for you guys, so keep watching.
Hi, my name's Cameron. I'm from Australia. This is my first time playing Gwent competitively. Playing the tournament was really hard though. It's like I've been awake for like 24 hours before I finally got to finish it, so I was quite drained by the end of it. Personally, I like to avoid Coleman because I've been training with him. That'd be kind of awkward having to play, you know, your own teammate in the first round. Beyond that, I'd say the other person would actually be Freddie, just because I don't know what he'd be bringing in the first round. It might be something surprising, so I'd rather verse him in the second round onwards. I think the most surprise would definitely be my friends. I think they've been pretty excited for me to do an event like this before. They'll be like staying up at from 12 p.m. to actually watch the event. Sorry, 12 a.m. to watch the event, so they're pretty excited for that. I really loved the setting from the previous Challenger. I thought the castle was a very nice touch, made it very interesting, added something a little bit extra. For this Challenger, I think it's very interesting playing underground, you know, something different. So my secret plan for this tournament is to actually verse Tailbot. I really want to regain Shaggy's honor for him and eventually see him in the next Open.
Being most quoted player feels the same as being the best player. That means great. I think that qualifying via qualifiers feels really good because you feel like you didn't waste all these hours playing all these games. Yeah, it just feels rewarding. I think the strongest player in this tournament is Tailbot. because he's Tailbot. Medshanos defeated me once in the tournament, but he's definitely not my kryptonite. I just think that I improved a lot as a player since my first tournament. My favorite card for this tournament is Mandrake. I like it because it's very versatile. You can use it in a lot of different ways, as a carryover or just to reset your unit or your opponent's unit. And yeah, I basically like cards that give you a lot of choices. I think Village is an amazing place. It's really beautiful, and I like being here because I think I can already smell victory in there. I would like to obliterate every single opponent in this tournament, but I can only destroy 3 of them at most, so it's quite unfortunate.
All right, well, it's time for our last match of the day, and then we can finally end our shift down here in the mine and see some sunlight. Or moonlight. We've been down here a while. All right, Panda, Merchant, I'm throwing it over to you. Let's do this thing, guys.
Hey guys, hello and welcome back to Challenger. Of course, we have an awesome matchup coming up for you. We have the Lord of Annihilation himself, Tail God, going up against an Australian man. I apologize. So this one promises to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think Apologize wants to maybe emulate Colomon back in Challenger number 2. He came into the scene the first time at a tournament, and coming into a Challenger is kind of a nervous, kind of thing, because obviously you've never played an Open, you never played a Gwen Slam, you never played a minor event, so you're coming straight into the big bucks basically, and he has to really prove himself because Tailgod is a really good opponent.
Yeah, we're going to find out whether he will emulate Colomon last Challenger or this Challenger. It's going to be one of the two, so hopefully we get a pretty good series out of this one. I'm very excited for this. Of course, seeing new players is awesome. I'm going to take a quick refresher at the prize pool and the bracket so far. So you can see from the last game, Hannah-chan taking the entire stake of $5,000.
And it was the same with Azikov and Colomon too. Back-to-back clean sweeps that were pretty unexpected, but I mean, it's Gwen. I mean, it could happen. If a player dominates, they can get a 3-0. We're going to see the brackets real quick as well and just see, a bit of just what's been happening in this tournament until now, the past 3 games. And we see right there 2 clean sweeps in a row, and Freddy, of course, also 3-1. So I think pretty dominating performance from the victors. We're going to have to see if we have, like you said, a closer match between Tailbot and Apologize.
Yeah, definitely. But whoever wins this upcoming match will be going on to face Hannah-chan tomorrow in their semi-final. So a pretty astute opponent awaits them. So
Hannah-chan coming from a win in the last Gwen Open as well, so he's already coming with the confidence. And 3-0ing Super JJ, someone that's been playing, CCGs for a long time, an experienced player. It definitely gives you a big confidence boost as well.
Yeah, it certainly does. Hannah-chan on excellent form at the moment, which is really awesome to see, actually. And if Apologize was to win this match, we'd actually have China versus Australia, which would be a really new and refreshing matchup.
Exactly. We've seen a lot of Europe, not so much North America, but like you said, Australia and China, 2 big regions that can definitely make a splash on the Gwen scene. We're hopefully we're going to see a lot of different nations and in different countries participating in Gwen over the next few tournaments as well. But already, Australia finally making it to a big official Gwen event is great to see.
Yeah, it wasn't since Gwen Slam actually with Pirate Petrify that we've seen an Australian in a tournament, so really exciting. And the players are just getting ready to walk in, so get ready for an overly dramatic entrance, full with dry ice and all. So let's see them take their place. Just getting ready to start their matchup, taking their places. If you had to give an edge in this one initially, who would you give it to?
I mean, it's hard not to say Tailbot. He has the experience. He's been proving it on ladder and on tournaments for the past few months. Apologize, he's been on ladder, maybe not in the top 8, but he's been, fighting his way through the ladder the past few seasons as well, but he hasn't made it to any tournaments yet. This is his first big splash. We'll see the bans in just a second now as well after we see the decks. And right away, it looks like Nilfgaard is out of this tournament, out of this last match of the tournament. We see Amir banned for Apologize and John Calvite banned for Tailbot, so no alchemy for him.
Yeah, do you think that's to do with the variety that you can see coming out of Nilfgaard? I mean, if you see Calvite, you can be relatively confident that it is going to be alchemy, of course, but we've seen spies already from Emir. Emir has other options available to him, such as hand buff. Do you think this is just people kind of respecting that Emir? They're not quite sure what it represents.
Exactly. I mean, you normally prep for decks that you expect in a tournament. You prep, you know there's going to be, you know, in some form, in some way, there's going to be King Brand, there's going to be, you know, Dagon, Deathwish for the most part.
There's going to be Henselt, there's going to be Brand, there's going to be Bruver, yeah.
Exactly. So when you see something that you don't expect, it's like, wait a minute. If this guy brought this to a $100,000 tournament, something might be going on here. There might be, you know, a reason for that. So he goes for the ban there, and I think it makes sense if you're kind of scared of what you don't expect.
Yeah, I hope that we do see a very strong performance from Cam, but he's definitely going in as the underdog in this matchup, of course, going up against the very, very infamous, for all the right reasons, veteran Tailbot.
I think Apologize is a pretty, you know, veteran, experienced, composed player. Doesn't seem very jittery. I think he has some experience. You know, just in the big stage, I think it shows at least he doesn't seem very nervous at all. I might be wrong, but hopefully I'm not, and hopefully we get a great match here between these two fantastic players.
Yeah, certainly hoping so. What do you think each one of these players is going to lead off on?
I mean, there's some, depending on if you're red coin, blue coin, you obviously have different strategies. Both players are running Henselt, so I think they're going to save that for their red coin matchups. And in general, King Brand, normally you can run a blue coin and not get too punished because it has, you know, the carryover, it has a lot of different utility options that help out in round 2. And it's the same with the Bruver in some ways. You normally want to use a red coin to kind of punish with the Cleaver, Barclays, Bruver combo, and the Yavin as well. It's almost guaranteed. But you also have War Dancer to kind of help you out in round 2 as well. It's kind of like carryover. So a lot of different options here, I think, for both players.
Certainly so, and especially looking at Tailbot's got a little bit of spice in here too. He's got a little bit of the old bamboozle. We won't spoil it for you quite yet, but trust me, one of Tailbot's decks might not be what you assume.
Yeah, not always what it seems here for Tailbot. I think he brought some pretty spicy stuff, some undercover decks, possibly. We'll find out, you know, maybe in a few matches, a few games. We'll see if you know, it surprises you guys, because it definitely surprised me for sure.
Yeah, it was certainly an interesting one when we were going over the decks. He's definitely going for the old round 1 of the tournament bamboozle, but with a very strong list nonetheless.
Both players very serious, very composed. Obviously, a lot on the line here. Not only past the semifinals, but already $5,000 at stake. And we're jumping right into it. Tailbot bringing a bit of bamboozle here. He is playing Dagon, but this does look like Consume.
Yeah, he is indeed playing Consume Dagon, and it goes back to what we were talking about when it's all about the information you convey to your opponent. You see Dagon, you're going to assume it's Deathwish, be it a Nova variant or not, but this is going to be Dagon Consume.
And it might dodge a ban because you might expect it to be, you know, just normal Deathwish instead of Consume. Like I said, you are losing a lot of points not running Arrakis Queen. I think it might make a bit of a difference, but maybe the surprise factor, or maybe just running Dagon as a strategy choice, it pays off for Tailbot. It might just happen.
Yeah, I think it goes beyond even the ban screen. I think it's also when you look at mulligans and the kind of things that you'd keep against Consume, it's very atypical compared to your typical matchup. So that gives Tailbot the ability to avoid things like artifact impressions or maybe corals. Not that you maybe mulligan that, but you know, like any control elements that you keep against Consume, you might throw away against what you assume is Deathwish.
Right away, Apologize plays Henselt on red coin, a very dominant deck thanks to the Henselt leader ability. And right away, a Winch to create a battering ram, which is a card that Apologize is running, so already the possibility of using a Neki to shuffle that back and getting an even more powerful Henselt.
And there is the Sir in the hand of Apologize, which of course, if you don't know, Sir is almost guaranteed to be drawn in round 2 if you haven't gotten it out.
And it's a tricky card. I mean, we've seen it, you know, maybe mess up some games for Azikov in the past as well, and a few other players. So Apologize has to be very careful how he uses those dump banners, make sure they come out at the right moment, and make sure his hand doesn't suffer because of them.
But speaking of that, there is the Thala, which will definitely help them come out. If Tailbot plays, you know, any reasonable amount of points, we are going to see the dump banners fly out. It's one of the great things about the spy interaction in Northern Realms.
Yeah, and he has control of the round as well, so there's nothing Tailbot can do about this. And of course, no Frightener in most Consume decks, not in this one either, so no clear answer for Thaler.
Yeah, some very interesting choices indeed in this Consume deck. Like you say, not seeing that Arrakis Queen. We saw Freddy save a game for himself with Arrakis Queen earlier, using that immune tag to huge benefit, but Dagon is still a card that represents a lot of value in a longer round, and this Henselt may well struggle to actually clear that weather. Except he's got Deathmon, so you know, if that goes on target removal.
And a big eat there from Tailbot, playing only an 11-point Osril, but it eats that battering ram and allows, you know, it doesn't allow that Neki to shuffle it back. So already starting to damage Apologize's possible setup with Hensel and making sure it doesn't get too out of hand. Because we've seen, 6 battering rams dragged out, and that can be, 15-point swing. You definitely don't want to see that in a tournament like this.
Oh yeah, you certainly don't. And it goes back to what Tailbot said in his interview, actually, about he likes cards that give you lots of choices. So he's opting here not to play Ozrel for a huge amount of tempo, but instead to deny that key utility of Naneke that Apologize was leaning on. So Tailbot showing that he really likes those cards that give that modular choice of gameplay.
And big thing to note here,
какой обманщик, Tailbot.
It's been a staple in Hensel for so long.
Кто на стриме есть, ребят? Кто такой преданный? Я бы сказал, типа, пошли вон, а вы еще тут. Разводит. Tailbot. Я догон.
Not very often you see rain in tournament gameplay. In fact,
Сам
one of the first times I've ever seen it personally.
жорный парень. Хочет обмануть новичка.
That is a interesting choice from Apologize. Just immediately
Я так и знал, что Tailbot подлый тип. Подлый тип. Tailbot.
It's wow. Thanks, Founder.
So there's not really a big tell that Tailbot is playing Consume. I think he's hitting it pretty well till now. He hasn't played any of the... Ozrel, obviously, Ozrel does find a place in Deathwish as well, so if Apologize doesn't know what Tailbot has between his hands, he might bamboozle a little bit, but I think it's going to be tough. I think maybe even if Tailbot has played this on Pro Ladder, which may be the case, Apologize might know about this deck already, having maybe played him himself on Pro Ladder, so...
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. It's all going to be about the reads from Apologize. He's going to see the Vran, though, which is certainly an indicator that something's going on. Apologize with a little smile to himself. He might realize what he's up against now, and that's certainly going to change his style of play.
Rombit, a very, important card, I think, in Hensel. It looks like, a little bit of carryover and, 11 points, it's fine, but it adds so much more to that with the crewman synergy, with all the machines that Apologize is going to start pumping out throughout these rounds. And it's really a vital card, I think, in the Hensel matchup.
Yeah, it was a superb addition to the Hensel list. It's very, very powerful. That permanent crewman, when you start adding that additional damage onto everything, Ronvin ends up just being over 20 points of value easily, and potentially more as well. So Apologize going for the very strong ADC that we see a lot of out of Hensel these days.
And whether on both rows already, the Vran is ticking already, creating that, starting the consume ticks on that Necker.
Yeah, the Necker has not been duplicated yet, though, with any sort of Necker warrior, though. So right now, it is just buffing the initial ones in the deck. There's just 3 getting buffed, but we do see that fog go unanswered. Apologize probably wishing that he could pick up that death mold and clear the skies now.
Maybe playing around muzzle. It's a possibility with a Necker. Possibly anticipating a muzzle in a Hensel list. It could happen. I mean, for tournaments,
that is very popular. Yeah.
We've seen it played in many decks already this tournament, and I think in general in tournaments, it's a really good tool for messing with your opponent's game plan more than just getting points. We've seen it happen a lot over the past few games, so he may be scared of that, maybe letting it go up a few more points, but he's going to drop it down at 7 points, so maybe not scared enough, I guess.
Yeah, interesting, because it is actually one that you would definitely keep against Deathwish as well for things like Arcus Balls or Dows. So interesting to tell what make that risk, actually. Maybe he was just thinking that he doesn't want to spend the other consumes that he has and can't actually really afford to buff it up over 8, so had to take the risk. But to be fair, that shot with the Ballista basically told him that there is no muzzle there.
Yeah, no muzzle, but it's a very clear strategy in a round where Apologize can bleed his opponent out to just ping down the Neckers with Ballistas and with battering rams and take them down to, just keep cycling them by just doing damage. So by putting them at a higher total value, 7, 8, 9, it gets you out of that range a little bit where you can't just start cycling them like machine guns.
Yeah.
And it helps a lot with, preserving some Neckers for round 3.
Certainly, and I mean, when you can't cycle them so fast as well because you're not running a Rakus Queen, you're going to have to be a little more precise with that Necker gameplay, so it'll be interesting to see how Tailbot manages his assets here.
You still have a ton of tools. I mean, Slizzers, you have Forktails, you have Vrans taking every single turn, so they're still going to get pretty big. You just don't have that, burst Rakus Queen to help out.
And you don't have the immunity to protect it either.
And there's the Necker cycling. But comes down at 7, so much 8 already, so it's a lot harder to ping these down quickly. If they come out at 4 or 5, then it's a lot easier with battering rams, and especially the crewman pockets who just kill them in one go.
Yeah, it certainly is. Tailbot is going to be looking to add some strength onto those Neckers. He does have the Monster's Nest available to maybe, provide him with a little bit of carryover should he want to, but it'll be interesting to see how he proceeds here, actually, because so many of the cards he's holding are just so core to his win condition.
And this Consume deck playing right into that Bloody Baron. I mean, a lot of units are going to get killed, a lot of low-value units as well, like Slizzard, for example, the Brewers Ritual we're seeing there. So a lot of easy pings, a lot of Neckers dying as well. You're obviously multiplying units, so you're getting a ton of units that are going to get killed eventually. And that Bloody Baron is definitely going to get to at least, I think, 25 points easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of classic matchup for the Bloody Baron, really, isn't it? So he's, having a great time out there. But looks like we're going to see a Necker Warrior come down, add more Neckers into the deck.
Saves that extra point from the rain. No need to place anything next to that Ran now since it is consumed till the next turn. And that 1 point might be enough to maybe give Tailbot a good pass in a few rounds.
Yes, there's 5 Neckers in the deck at the moment, I believe. And some of those are on base strength, though. So he's going to be looking to get a lot of consumes going. That Vran's not ticking on anything right now. So I would expect to see that gap filled should this round go out much longer. But that will provide another target to the rain. And that Ballista is doing work cycling those Neckers.
And again, Apologize does not care about points, really. I mean, in the end, he played his spy, so he can really just keep playing cards, and his opponent has to match.
Некеры тоже
When
качаются.
there's a few cards left, and he has a big gap. But for now, he's forced to keep on playing Tailbot, and Apologize can just continue picking Neckers and cycling them out.
Все зависит от того, насколько долго будет второй раунд. Сколько карта останется на третьей. В любом разе, при малом количестве карт, я думаю, Тейлбота, Тор, Акеры все равно сильно пустотам. До одной карты, конечно, это доведет.
There's another Necker Warrior, so a lot of Neckers already in the deck for Tailbot. Has a nice arsenal ready to go, and Apologize just not quick enough to cycle these out, I think. With that, extra few points in the Neckers, it's a lot harder to cycle them, and I mean, it's going to be a battle of a big Henselt or a big Necker in round 3, really. And I think Tailbot, if he's not really, if Apologize doesn't really control him too much, I think he might just have, Henselt coming out straight away.
Wow. Oh, for the Siege Masters too.
Yeah, it's going to cycle out. Cycle out some Neckers, but that's a really aggressive play.
Yeah, very aggressive play here from the Australian player. But quite an interesting one. The Neckers are going to get cycled. I mean, once a Necker passes that 6-point threshold into 7, it means that a Ballista can't kill it with his triple fire. So, like you say, he didn't necessarily cycle him quick enough. And I don't know if that Henselt committal was worth it.
It is always greedy to keep Henselt for round 3. There are ways that you can get, a bad hand or a bad, situation where you just have a dead Henselt or a very suboptimal one. So I think it's always a greedy play in some matchups to keep that Henselt, but if Apologize wants the Bloody Baron to be his win condition, he's going to have to bring him Tailbot down to pretty much 0 cards in this turn, and just to, because Neckers, when you have 2 cards, it's already, the 1 Necker and then something to interact with it, it already makes, 30 or 40 points with 2 cards, so Bloody Baron, even at 25 or 30 points, might just not be enough, so it's tough. It's tough to call this one.
Yeah, we're looking at cards like Phoenix in Tailbot's hand here, and that itself can just do a whole explosion using that power of the Neckers in there. The only sort of downside right now for Tailbot is that his Neckers simply aren't that strong. Only the initial few actually benefited from several of his consumes so far.
Yeah, and Arrakis Queen counts for 3 pings on each Necker, so it's a ton of points. It doesn't seem like it when it first comes out, it just seems like a normal consume trigger, but you're adding so many points to so many Neckers that it really adds up to a ton of value, total deck value in the long game.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at just like, let's say, take like an average number of Neckers, say like 6 in the deck, those 3 pings are 18 points all of a sudden. Like, it's serious value from that Arrakis Queen, so it is definitely, for the boozle, he has sacrificed a little bit of value, but that Fog actually has done absolute work so far in this round. But like you say, Apologize just doesn't care about the points, right?
Yeah, still cycling Neckers, still getting, 1 by 1, shuffling them out of the deck, putting them on the red carpet, well, almost on the red carpet, in front of the red carpet. But 1 by 1, they're coming out, filing out, and Tailbot is kind of losing his win condition.
Yeah, slowly but surely, they are getting cycled out. It's just a question of how much more can Apologize do. I mean, he's got 1 Ballista there, and he's got Seltkirk. I mean, well, the Ballista doesn't represent a kill at this point because they've passed that 6-point threshold. Seltkirk does, of course. But a Ghoul comes out.
And Apologize missing the Scorch as well in his hand would have been fantastic for this matchup.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want in this matchup. But again, maybe influenced by the Dagon leader choice.
And Tailbot may expect it, which is why he's not feeding that Vran, even more food in the back row there. He's letting it be, letting it, not consume anything this turn, I think. Or he might, pop down the something like something not too big. I mean, if you give it, an 18 like that Ghoul there, well, you're just asking for trouble. A 40-point Scorch is absolutely, a killing blow. in round 2.
I think he does have the maximum value Selkirk available. There's an 11-point Necker warrior. Selkirk finds his perfect value against an 11-point target because of his 3 armor. So there is a 19-point Selkirk available, but even that, you know, it's not really enough to apply pressure. And Porojai probably wants to keep that for a higher value target. The question is, will the target that ends up coming out be so high value that Selkirk will fail? Does he have to go for it now? I think he does.
And you want to bleed down as many cards as possible. If you give a consume player, you know, 4 or 5 cards to work with in round 3, you're asking for a ton of trouble. I mean, those combos when Neckers are, you know, 10, 11 points are absolutely massive in terms of tempo.
And there we go. So Selkirk finds his maximum Fibonacci value at 19 points, but Tailbot is still 8 points ahead, but he is slowly getting bled out of cards. But that Phoenix alone represents a lot of power here.
Now, Porojai decides when to end this, basically. Tailbot hasn't created a big enough gap where he can just say, I'm going to hero pass, and good luck catching up. There's only, you know, a few points right now, so he doesn't have the position to do that just yet. But we see some, you know, fairly low-tempo plays left for a Porojai, nothing too big. So it may be that in a few turns, a Porojai just has to pass and go down to, you know, even cards to round 3.
Yeah, I mean, I expect to see the Ballista come out of Porojai's here at least.
And Tailbot giving us the quick peek into his deck. He does have 5 Neckers left. Good to know.
5 Neckers.
Thank you, Tailbot.
Couple of 6s, couple of 7s, and an 8. He goes for one of the 7s. But I mean, he's got like a beautiful Forktail opportunity next as well, so Porojai really can't apply any pressure to him. This is just about amount of cards and when Porojai wants to end this round. There's the Ballista. Adding a point to the Baron, taking it to 20. And denying the consume on the Varan as well, which is very important for denying those Neckers value.
And you can't really play the Forktail next to that Varan. I mean, it's a really risky move. You're asking for this is a 2-0 basically.
Yeah.
I think Tailbot knows this as well. He's going to play it safe, I hope. I mean, for his own sake. Because it's a risky play if you, in a big tournament like this with so much on stake. If you're going to risk it, you might get the biscuit, but you might also get the 3-0 sweep and go home. So Adzikov played a bit risky, but Tailbot I think is going to be a bit more sane and go for the...
Yeah, I mean, Adzikov smelt blood, right, because he was 2-0 up in the series. But in the first game, when you're playing for everything, you're probably going to go a little bit safer. And Porojai, you know, with the way he's pushing this round, it's a perfectly reasonable conclusion for Tailbot to make that he is keeping something up his sleeve. So, yeah, I don't expect to see him play into the Scorch that hard unless he really is feeling confident.
You're gonna see it here. Tailbot taking his time, and yeah, he plays safe. Goes for the big Forktail, but not too big. I hope he counted. If they don't line up, it's also a good thing. They will in a few turns though. If that rain keeps on taking on that Varan.
It certainly will, but there's actually not enough turns and cards left to let that line up. So
Tailbot has that safety, and the Porojai has to go for the pass here. It's too big of a point gap.
Wow, these 2 cards in Tailbot's hand though. Cam is going into a storm of Neckers, and that Baron's pretty big, but is it big enough?
Not at all.
I mean, no is the answer. But
and you cycled some of the Neckers, but there's still, you know, a few left, so it's going to be really tough.
Okay, yeah, Triss Telekinesis has a decent amount of points here, but there's a Forktail as well, so...
Yeah, I think Tailbot has. I mean, it's just too many points. If you don't stop this consume train in some way, or you go down to only, you know, one or 2 cards maximum in round 3 with 3 cards and such good card quality as well for Tailbot, I think it may just be too much here. And of course, Hensel also spent. You have the Bloody Baron, but 22 points is pretty much...
Against Neckers, it's nothing. Right? I mean, it's Neckers. If it goes unanswered, it's favored against literally everything. It's the things that have the binary answers, like the compressors, like the muzzles, that is favored against it. In a point-to-point fight, Neckers is going to win.
Yeah, I mean, it's relative to the deck, obviously. You know, Bloody Baron 22 points is like a Siri Nova without having to obey that deck building law. But against Neckers, it just doesn't mean anything. It's just, you know, it's a good amount of points, but I think Tailbot should have this one. He has some pretty strong cards in hand. I think Neki can't really affect. Yeah, you can put them
in
It's pretty much also 22 point. Or yeah, I mean it's decent value.
It's pretty decent, yeah. Porojai is going to be
and you know
for the bad draw.
Tailbot's definitely going to create a big point gap when he starts playing these Neckers out.
He certainly is. Both of the cards remaining in his hand represent a large amount of points. So do Porojai's though, so you know.
Просто играть в прошлом раунде не было смысла. Там мог
outpunch бот. With a Forktail and a Phoenix.
Этот чувак мог быть догнать Брона.
But Neki was pretty strong play. I mean, maybe I was wrong. Maybe 22 points and 22 points in a round 3 is a lot of points, maybe. And Triss, of course, is a great card that we've seen her in so many decks already because she's just very consistent at putting up a lot of points with Winches, for example, and Hensel. So on average, that should be also like another, what, 16 to 18 points?
Yeah, certainly.
A 60.3 card round 3 for Apologize is nothing, you know, to scoff at.
Yeah, and it can add a couple of points to Baron even if, you know, a battering ram is to come out. It would actually get a couple of kills, especially with the crewman from Ronvid.
Watt's still playing around the Scorch, of course, as well.
Yeah.
Because it's the thing in Hensel, and he hasn't seen it yet. But oh my god, these Neckers.
Oh the Batman replacement was nice, though. Opening with a Necker I certainly liked. Very aware of how powerful those Neckers can spike points.
No great pings there for the battering ram.
I think the Trebuchet.
He only has a 4 maximum crewman pocket with a Ron, but there's not a double crewman pocket, so you can't hit the Phoenix. And
Trebuchet on the front.
Yeah, it's an okay play, but is it enough? 25-point Baron.
It's a big boy Baron, but I think the
it.
Forktail is just going to be too scary here for the Baron to overtake. Bearing in mind he's already 8 points behind, so as long as this goes over 18, yeah. It certainly will.
Oh, 68 points. Another tick on the Baron, though. 27-point Baron.
Surprisingly close, but not going to be close enough. Cam knows.
Apologize counting, making sure the math is correct. You might want to save this card for later if it's not enough, because obviously you want to try and surprise your opponent. Maybe you're not running Bloody Bear on your list. Maybe you're running a different gold. You know, Igni, I don't know. Whoever. It's a tournament. You can run different techs that aren't expected to try and surprise your opponent. So Apologize is going to do the math. Going to make sure. And he's going to hide that. It's information.
Yeah,
information.
I mean, even if it seems like relatively obvious information, it is still volunteering information.
Обманул. Ладно, я, наверное, вырублю стрим, чекнемся. Сорян.
It's good he checked the math, though. I mean, there's times where
Давайте,
you're you know,
покеда еще раз.
counting, and you pass when you could have won. Then it's, you know, it's
Мне
a
нравится
tournament like this, there's so much at stake. It would be, you know, maybe he doesn't recover.
Bye.
Thankfully, the math